live from Johannesburg, very good morning to you. It's going to be a very busy news day. There's a lot going on all over South Africa and the world, it seems, today, Elvis.
Well, a lot happening here, but now yesterday we started off our conversation with KPMG, the report that was retracted by them. And yesterday, of course, we heard the SARS coming out, and of course, they want to sue KPMG in that regard now. So yesterday we asked you this question, Kendall, on the poll.
Absolutely. We wanted you to get involved with those whole saga, and we wanted to find out from you, should KPMG be prosecuted? Now, you gave us a whole host of answers. Almost 1,000 people responded, 895 respondents on this, and 95% of you said, yes, absolutely, KPMG should be prosecuted.
A lot of people, Elvis, are going further and saying, no, their business should be closed down in South Africa, and the finger's also being pointed at McKinsey. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out. But of course, we follow it up with the question of the day on yesterday's poll.
Now, yesterday you heard Tom Moyani, the SARS commissioner, coming out, says that they want to sue KPMG and they want to take those legal proceedings further for their reputational damage that was caused. So the question we ask you, what do you make then of the SARS commissioner Tom Moyani's response to the KPMG report? We'd like to find out from you.
Zanan comes in with reputational risk has been suffered as a result of the KPMG report. It's only fair that SARS get recourse in any way possible. Credibility.
Some of the stuff in the report that came out really paints a glum picture, Elvis.
Well, Mahafa says, great move, but disappointed by Nyami Boy, the Scopus subcommittee, the whip of the ANC who was there, who appeared during that media briefing. Well, he's got an answer to that. We're probably going to speak to him shortly, or soon, I might add.
Michael tweets, he says, it's relevant and to the point. The only thing we're waiting for is a way forward. We want to see less talk and more action. KPMG must be made an example of. That's what a lot of people are saying. How can you put forward dodgy, clean audit reports? In the end, that kind of thing, when you're dealing with accrued credit going forward, it causes a lot of damage.
A lot of damage not only to the individuals in SARS that had to leave, as well as the executives from KPMG, but also to the country. The economy of the country is in
I'm just happy that the gatekeepers are being looked at. Nobody's above the law.
Yeah, but our theme today, of course, we always take things forward and we always try and preempt and have a look at what happens next in South Africa. And, well, the red lights flickering on the campuses here in South Africa, Elvis.
This is students awaiting that eagerly awaited report of the Fees Commission that is tasked with exploring the possibility of free tertiary education in this country, even. And the question we pose to you on the poll then, Kendall,
is about the Fees Must Fall movement. We want to find out, what do you think? Do you expect more protests at South Africa's universities?
Yeah, of course, the president's expected to make some announcements shortly, and we are sitting on, well, more than 70% of you that are tweeting us are saying, yes, you expect more protests. Of course, Elvis, this is the kind of protest season normally on our campuses ahead of the next year, and students are already looking forward and saying they think next year they might be in for a bit of a surprise.
Well, and maybe preempting it, because the president is sitting on that report. He's now going through that report and he's applying his mind to it, and we have to wait for that outcome.
Gudani comes in and says, yes, we will. i.e., we will protest until they begin fixing the tertiary education system. There will always be the so-called Fees Must Fall protest.
Freaky Flash, keeping it real with us here today.
Jamila van der Skype says the fees must fall, but the protests are way out of hand. Littering streets and hurting other students is totally incorrect.
Yes, our thoughts are with those students that are sitting down, studying, burning the midnight oil right now, hoping that their parents' money, that they've hard-earned money that they spent won't be wasted when the exams get called off because of protests. That's a thought for all of us to think about as we head into protest season, they call it now, on our campuses, Elvis. But, Kendall, we've got a follow-up Springbok question. It's just right, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we've got a birdie tweeting to us, telling us that Francois Lowe, man in the middle, might be recalled from Europe, and we want to find out from you, if he gets recalled, should more of the Springboks European contingent get called back into the squad?
Yeah, going forward. Should they just go pick the best box that's available? It's the way of the world. Money now, Elvis, rules the world of sport. It just is what it is.
Yeah, so they say, Eben, but Zwandile says, I'm still hurt and embarrassed by that defeat to talk about the Springboks right now.
Sorry,
anyway,
Michael, the big M, he says, yes, even the retired legends were in their 50s and 60s. But I still say the coach is not fit to lead their national side. No plan whatsoever.
Yeah, well, some were suggesting that Nas Botha should come back.
I've seen
Yeah.
Nas. No, Nas is klar. He's klar. Anyhow, guys, keep tweeting us. Nice sense of humor there, anyhow. A lot of news, as I said. Let's get into our work.
AfriForum is today expected to ask the High Court in Pretoria to review the diplomatic immunity granted to Zimbabwe's First Lady Grace Mugabe. The UDM's urgent application to interdict the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro from removing Mongameli Bobani as the deputy mayor will be heard in the Port Elizabeth High Court today. And the big story of the day, the Inkatha Freedom Party leader in KwaZulu-Natal is expected to testify before the Moerane Commission today. Now, we'll go to that commission a little bit later live when they do so. That's all coming up, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendo Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
Gentlemen, the PSL is back in action tonight. We're still talking about the Springboks and what happened over the weekend. Some people still heartsore, not wanting to say anything about it.
Yeah, no, I don't even want to watch Pirates against Cape Town City tonight. It's just been traumatic the last few days.
Now, who knows? You know, Pirates might actually just do the deed and do something against Cape Town City, which very few have been able to do this season. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today. An intriguing clash is on the cards in the Absa Premiership tonight as Orlando Pirates host Cape Town City FC at the FNB Stadium. And the Springboks released 7 players, including Andre Pollard, for Currie Cup duty and could look to their erstwhile forgotten foreign contingent for help. All this is multiple South African record holder Dominique Scott Efford plans to make waves when she returns home for the first time in 18 months to race at the inaugural Durban 10K City Surf Run. All this and more a little later, about 10:40. We'll be chatting with Evan about some of the big news from the weekend. So make sure you stick around for that 9:45 because Elvis is going to take you through until then.
Thank you, Kendall. Our first story this morning, the AfriForum will this morning ask the High Court in Pretoria to review the diplomatic immunity that was granted to Zimbabwe's First Lady Grace Mugabe by the South African government. Now, Mugabe allegedly attacked South African model Gabriella Engels in a Johannesburg hotel with an electric cord last month. Engels laid a criminal charge against Mugabe, but she was granted diplomatic immunity by the International Relations and Corporations Ministry. AfriForum's Willie Spies says that they will be asking the court to set aside the diplomatic immunity that was granted to Mugabe, but the Zimbabwean embassy here has applied for leave to intervene in the matter. According to Space, the embassy wants to deflect the matter from Mrs. Mugabe. He says much as the embassy is welcome to intervene, this matter has to do with Mrs. Mugabe and not the embassy. The Zimbabwean First Lady was recently reported to have given a statement to the South African police denying that she assaulted Engels. Instead, she claimed that an intoxicated and unhinged Engels attacked her with a knife. Engels suffered a deep gash to her forehead and bruises to her body during the alleged encounter with Zimbabwe's First Lady. The urgent application by the UDM to interdict the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro from removing Mongameli Bobani as the deputy mayor will be heard in the Port Elizabeth High Court today. Bobani was removed in a vote of no confidence last month. The UDM is in a coalition with the Democratic Alliance, COPE, the ACDP and the Patriotic Alliance in the Metro. In the court papers, Bobani argues that on the day of the motion of no confidence, there was no quorum. A new deputy mayor is expected to be appointed in the next council meeting, depending on the outcome of this urgent application. The Inkatha Freedom Party leader in KwaZulu-Natal is expected to testify before the Moerane Commission today. Premier Willis Mchunu set up the commission in October last year to probe the political killings in KwaZulu-Natal. The commission is expected to complete its inquiry in October and make recommendations to the KwaZulu-Natal Premier. A number of people were killed in the province in the build-up to the local government elections last year. The latest victims of these political killings is the former ANC Youth League National Secretary General Sindiso Magaka and 2 other councillors in Mzumkulu in KwaZulu-Natal in July. Meanwhile, the Hawks have expressed confidence that they will arrest the suspect linked to the shooting of Magaka and 2 other councillors in Mzumkulu in KwaZulu-Natal in July. This after a man linked to the shooting was among the suspects killed in a shootout between police and robbers at Harding 2 weeks ago. There have been reports that the suspects were from the KwaMashu Hostel. Now, we will bring you the IFP's testimony in the Moerane Commission live at around about 10 o'clock, and as soon as they start, we'll go there live. Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs says it expects the Minister, Hlengiwe Mkhize, to brief it soon on her decision to suspend her Director General, Mkhuseli Apleni. Apleni, the Home Affairs Director General, has approached his lawyers to fight his suspension. Mkhize made the announcement in a statement. Apleni recently had to fend off questions about how members of the Gupta family were granted citizenship. His lawyer, Sandile July, has dismissed the allegations against him as flimsy, saying that his client was reportedly suspended after he failed to arrange a meeting between Home Affairs Minister Hlengiwe Mkhize and staff. July says that Apleni received a suspension notice on 4 charges, but that they have no idea which charge relates to his suspension. There have been claims of a possible purge after Apleni told Parliament that then Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba vetoed a departmental decision not to grant citizenship to the Gupta family in 2013. Now, we spoke to Sandile July, who is Mkhuseli Apleni's lawyer, and we started by asking him if any reasons were given for the suspension.
The reason for the suspension, we don't know, but what we do know is the allegations that were made against him, on which he was invited to make the representations on. And subsequent to that, then we got a letter which does not say anything about the response that was made, except to accept that there's a detailed response that the minister received, but it doesn't say, she doesn't say anything about the merits or the content of the response.
Can you tell us anything about the allegations that were made against him in the first instance?
Listen, these allegations are flimsy allegations. It's allegations about failure to call a meeting with the staff, to meet with the minister, and I think the minister forgot that on 3 occasions, Mr. Apleni called those meetings and they were cancelled at the instance of the minister. That's one allegation. The other allegation has to do with about Mr. Apleni having asked by the minister to settle matters which are legal matters, where there are legal disputes, and we don't even know what it's referring to. As you would appreciate, Home Affairs has got a lot of litigation matters. So when you say to a person, settle the litigation matter, we don't even tell which litigation matters are you talking about.
The public will also be asking questions about the whole Gupta citizenship affair. Might that have come into play, or you have no idea if it's linked at all?
No, on those allegations, there's nothing. There's no reference to the Gupta issues at all. I don't think it has anything to do with that. Yeah.
Well, there you have it. That's your news for now. Now, remember, today we are conducting a poll and we're focusing really on the Fees Must Fall Commission. Now, President Zuma received that particular report and he's mulling over it. And we want to know from you in the meantime, do you expect more Fees Must Fall protests at South Africa's universities, depending on what's the outcome of that particular report? Now, 71% of you are saying yes, you expect those protests, and 29% are saying no. And Eben, that of course is the statistics as it stands right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of unease on our campuses at the moment. When you look at social media and what people are tweeting, and on my feed, even when I put out the question today, people are tweeting me, they say, well, it's exam time coming up, and it seems there are sections of students who want to disrupt, especially, there's a trend, they say, that's when it's exam time, protest season kind of heats up. There's the flip side of that. Of course, there are the students who've been studying overnight, burning the midnight oil, getting ready for exams. Their parents are paying for their education, exorbitant monies, and they are worried that they won't be able to write these exams. So
and there are those that did not study during the course of the year, and they want a short way out of it, I would imagine.
Yep, but free tertiary education, some say, is a must for South Africa going forward. Now, it's a debate, and this debate on free higher education in South Africa is well and truly back. This after the Fees Commission, which was tasked with exploring the possibility of free tertiary education, submitted its final report to President Jacob Zuma at the end of last month. Now, students across universities in South Africa are eagerly awaiting for this report to be then made public. To talk to us about the possibility of free higher education, the fees must fall movement, but also the report. Well, we are joined by Lindy Tlo from the Higher Education Transformation Network. Lindy, a very good morning to you, my dear, and thank you for joining us here on the Newsroom show.
Good morning to you and to the viewers, and thank you for the invitation.
Lindy, just give us a quick idea. What do you guys make of the Fees Commission's work until now?
Well, we really welcome the President for commissioning such an important group of experts in terms of looking at an issue that is really important, very critical, not only to students as such, but to the South African community at large.
What is your expectation for when the President makes an announcement, and do you think free education is possible here in South Africa?
Well, it will be really preempting the report as such in terms of the recommendation made by the Commission, as it were. However, as Higher Education Transformation Network, we really do not actually believe that there's what we call free higher education. We strongly believe that the money that is going to fund, it's there, and it's the taxpayers' money. It's actually the voted funds. And so we are of the view that while it's free from the student point of view, it's actually the money that is already there that is contributed by our taxpayers. And so it should be made available to students. And this is critical so that we begin to change the landscape of South Africa in terms of poverty issues and eradicate all the ills that we have, if you like, within the community.
Inequality especially. But quickly, the final report has now gone through to the President. What do you guys at the Transformation Network, what do you think could be in this final report, and what would you have liked to be in this final report?
Well, we joined the 29% that are saying the report will be positive. We are very, very positive about the outcome. And we believe that it's not only free, but it's free quality higher education for the poor. Perhaps what could be the question would be the time frame in terms of saying by when are we able to, enjoy the fruit of free higher education in South Africa for the poor.
What do you think will happen if this report does not contain the news that students want to hear?
Well, we believe that the conversation is happening in the right fora in higher education, and we believe that students possess the necessary skill in terms of engaging with the report, in particular the recommendation, and persuading the powers that may be to meet the government halfway in terms of realizing this free higher education. We believe strongly that it should not just be government playing the role of free higher education. Internationally so, we've seen that private sector, if you like, are engaged in that. And in particular, universities especially if you look at historically advantaged universities which really possess the reserves that is mainly from the apartheid government. And so we feel strongly that institutions of higher learning have an important role to play in terms of addressing issues of access in higher education.
Do you expect more violent protests? We've seen some in Cape Town and elsewhere. Do you expect a new round of violent protests now? They call it protest season, starting as students start looking forward towards next year.
Well, we are hoping that the report will be positive, and so there would not be need for further engagement at that level in terms of students trying to assert themselves as far as the Fees Must Fall campaign is concerned. And so we would like to urge that there should be a continuous engagement, really, as the report is out, and students need to engage with it robustly instead of taking to the street, and that is our appeal.
I want to ask you, in conclusion, your message to student leaders that are around the country now and have to provide leadership to the student body.
Well, we are aware that there are other structures that do not necessarily legitimately inclined to participate fully in terms of the Fees Must Fall campaign, and they have really been making issues very difficult for legitimate structures within student organization by, coming in and going into violation, or if you like, disrupting completely what needs to happen. And we feel strongly that leaders in higher education, in particular students, should really firm up and take their stand and position in terms of addressing issues that are important to students who have voted them into their positions. And so we also call on not only students as such, organization or leadership, but in particular organizations that are progressive, to speak in one voice to support the cause of students. And not only that, but we feel strongly that this is the only way that we could probably address issues that are important in terms of addressing issues of equality in South Africa. And so we feel strongly that if we speak in one voice as organizations that are progressive and student movement as such, the issues will be addressed without really destroying what we have in this country.
Lindy, thank you very much for joining us. Very interesting views you have with us. Very considered views, I have to say. Yes, of course. Oops, let me just get back into the camera shot. Considered views we have here, dealt with. Let's hope that common sense prevails and we do what is best for our students. Some of them are studying hard right now, all around the country as they're preparing for final exams. And common sense should really prevail. But let's go over to Elvis for more.
Yeah, thank you, Ian. And of course, this is the discussion this morning. Our focus area is on students. One of the student organizations, SASCO, says that they have written to the President, Jacob Zuma, to request a meeting this week. This follows delays in releasing the HEHA Commission report on the feasibility of free education or higher education. The commission was established after university students from across the country embarked on a violent, nationwide Fees Must Fall protest towards the end of 2015. You can recall those. Joining us now in studio is Avela Majajubane. He is the SASCO's National Executive Committee member. A very good morning to you, Squire, and welcome.
Good morning to you and your viewers at home.
First and foremostly, you've written to the President to find out what is going on.
Yes, indeed, as the South African Student Congress, we have written to the President to find out when is he going to release the report so that we are able to study it in time and be able to provide leadership on the ground, because as we are about to go on the right examination, students are anxious because they want to know what is it in the report, what is it that is going to happen come the next academic year.
What do you expect to come out of that report? Let's first talk about expectations.
Look, from the report, we just have confidence in the President. We don't expect anything from the report except the declaration of free higher education. And also, not only based on fees, but about the quality of our education as well. So we expect nothing else except the declaration. But we have said it before that we have lost confidence in Judge here because we viewed it that the commission does not have political will because many of student leaders were not given an opportunity and a sufficient time to be engaged by the commission. Even ourselves, when we made presentation, we were not engaged by the commission. So we are saying we expect the president now to decide.
So what you are suggesting is that you made representations, but those representations were not taken cognizance of.
We believe so. We believe so.
Why would you believe that?
It's because we were not engaged in the commission, and that when the vice chancellors and universities made their presentation, they were engaged like anybody else. But when it came to student leaders who made submissions, they were not engaged at all.
Now, if the president decides that higher education is not possible, free higher education for that matter, what would be your next step?
Look, we are not leaders of our jacket. We lead students. So when the report comes like that, we will first engage with the president. Hence, we wrote to him because we want to have a sufficient engagement with him. And then from there, we will be able to take whatever that is given back to students and do consultation processes. Then students are going to provide a direction for us.
There are those that suggest that the current economic situation in the country, our downgrades, our technical recession, which we just came out of, does not make it possible for free higher education. Your thoughts on that, and do you think there is other possibilities?
Look, we have said it before. There is money in South Africa to fund free higher education. And we have said it and advised government that force the private sector to come on board because there is serious money in the private sector. So force private sector to work in collaboration with you and the government because we understand that we're in a capitalist society. Education cannot be free at all. Some both ought to pay for it. So we've advised government that force private sector to come on board because private sector is not contributing as it's supposed to be in the higher education sector.
Are these the alternatives that you have proposed to the Higher Commission?
Yes, we have proposed them in the Higher Commission.
Now, as an organization, what are you actively doing to ensure that we have a free transition if the president, and I'm just preempting now, if the president suggests that there is no free education?
Look, we will engage with the president. As I've said before, we will engage with the president and our student population. But we'll be patiently engaging robustly with the president, providing solutions, what will be the possible solutions. Advise him that this decision, perhaps, that was taken by the ANC, that by 2018, students whose family income of 150,000 combined they are going to receive full communal bursaries. So would advise them that maybe perhaps take the route that the ANC has given to you.
As a student organization, are you also engaging with students to make sure that there is no violent protest like we've seen in 2015?
Look, students are not violent, but students are reacting to a violent system of the education sector, which is captured by the capitalist society and the markets. Now, what we will do is to engage on students that, look, this is the way, provided that there is the declaration does not speak to our needs. We will engage with them. As I've said, they will give us direction, because we as leaders of students, we ought to hear what students are, and students will speak out. We
looked at the negatives. Let's look at the positive. The president come out tomorrow and say, free education for all.
That will be good for his legacy, and as student leaders will gladly accept that.
Now, there was, as you indicated earlier, there is a lot of money in South Africa somewhere. Some student got 14 million rand the other day from NSFAS. Your thoughts on that as SASCO, and should she be held responsible for splurging 800,000 rand?
No, as SASCO, we issued a statement. Those who are responsible for issuing that 14 million should be the one that be held responsible. The student must be excused from the probe. The student, we have said, the student must focus on his academic studies, and also university must provide social support, because that student now might be traumatized by this breakout on social media and within the institution. So ours is to support the student at all costs.
So she shouldn't be held responsible for the 800,000 rand that she splurged on hair and cosmetics and parties.
Look, the student did not decide or request that money. whilst we acknowledge that he splashed the money not in a good way, but we can't hold the student accountable for that, because the student, it was a choice to use the money in that way, and the student did not request money from NSFAS that, can you please at least give me 14 million or something like that.
Avela, thank you so much for your time and joining us here in studio, and all the best of luck, and let's hope that it is a positive for free education in South Africa.
Thank you.
That was Avela Majujubana, SASCO's National Executive Committee member, here in studio with us. Well, we continue with this discussion, and we're also taking a look at trends with Evan.
Yeah, thanks, Elvis. Good morning to you once again. If you've just joined us, of course, it's a lot happening today, lots happening on social media. We'll try and get all over it, but let's just go through the pages and see what you should be interacting with. Hashtag taxi strike, that took place yesterday. Cape Town, Johannesburg, and parts of the capital, Pretoria. The Cape strike turned violent and was suspended. You saw it live here on the show, buses burning, trucks being attacked, all sorts. Yes, the My City bus was stoned, and another satellite. Several people were injured. Lots of cars were damaged. Then, the biggest story of the week thus far. Hashtag KPMG. Feeling the scorching spotlight as SARS is now expected to sue the auditing firm for damaging their reputation there. So, then, all the sports talk. Well, varsity netball, the University of Western Cape faced UJ in a competitive match, but the Western Cape girls took a 59-46 win. Marty's also recorded their second ever varsity netball victory over Kofsies. So interesting that that's in the news right now. Further afield, Hurricane Irma wasn't enough. Hurricane Maria is now heading closer to the Caribbean islands of especially Dominica. This Category 5 storm has wind speeds of more than 150 kilometers an hour and is already bringing heavy rains there. It's the third hurricane in a row. And Donald Trump is at the UN and he still says there's no such thing as global warming. I can tell you that's why the storms are lashing the American coast. Maybe the US president will catch a wake up that there's a reason why these massive storms are out there. And here, let's take a look at our picture of the day now. This one comes from Ian Bremer. Now, it's captioned, found the last person impressed with Trump's UN speech. Here you see a lady who is absolutely in pain sitting behind the American president, having to listen to the drivel, they say, that he was talking about climate change there at the UN. Of course, South Africa's President Jacob Zuma is expected to take to the podium at the General Assembly sometime this evening, South African time. Of course, it is about 7-8 hours behind New York time. Now, the comment of the day. It's about the Cape Town taxi strike, and it comes from Winnie Maboya, who says, the sad part about the strike is that it only affects people who can't afford to lose their jobs. That's a reality. It's only those moms and dads that are out there trying to earn a living for their children and who have it all on the line who were affected by the taxi strike. Time to go to the courts. These are what is in the courts today. We'll start in Pietermaritzburg, where the Shembe faction that lost the previous case regarding control of the church is expected to appeal the judgment in the High Court there. Then, in the northwest, 29-year-old Sipho Thomas Mdiniso is expected to appear in the Rustenburg Magistrates Court. He, of course, is facing several charges, including 7 cases of rape, 8 of house robbery, murder, theft, and common robbery. These offences were committed between 2010 and 16 in Boitekong and Klabane, outside of the town of Rustenburg. Down in Cape Town, former Western Cape Police Commissioner Arno Lamour and 4 others are expected back in the High Court. Lamour, 3 brigadiers and a businessman face more than 100 charges of corruption, racketeering and money laundering, involving 1.6 million rand. Now, in April of 2015, Lamour, the 3 other former top police officials and 2 local businessmen handed themselves over to police there. The case is in the court today, and we'll keep you updated throughout the week as developments happen in this much-awaited case. Caused a lot of headlines down in Cape Town. Tomorrow on the show, well, we'll be looking at an Eastern Cape woman who's currently out on bail for an alleged murder which she reportedly committed when she found 3 men raping her 27-year-old daughter. In South Africa, it's caused a sensation on social media and mainstream. people are talking about this because we have high rape numbers in South Africa, and how do we overcome this? That's tomorrow's show. We're going to take a break. When I come back, I'll talk to Busisiwe Seabe, who leads Fees Must Fall here at Wits in Johannesburg. It'll be interesting to know what she tells us about their outlook with regard to the fees movement, but also the Commission's work. Don't miss it.
Countries in the East African region have started experimenting with wines.
Located in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo in South Kivu province, this park is the only place in the world to find the eastern lowland gorillas.
But the most famous monument in Casablanca is of course the Mosque Hassan II. The mosque is the third largest in the Muslim world.
The city of Tel Aviv and Israel's tourism ministry have teamed up with the local hotel chain to temporarily transform the tower into a two-story suite with hot tub, room service, and very unobstructed ocean views.
Catch Trends Travel every Sunday from 12 to 1 for all the global travel and leisure trends.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom. Now, students across various universities here in South Africa, they're eagerly awaiting for the Fees Commission report, which was handed over to President Jacob Zuma at the end of last month, and is yet to be made public. Now, the Commission was tasked with establishing the feasibility of free tertiary education for all, we should say, here in South Africa. To talk a little bit more about this, we are joined by Wits University's Fees Must Fall leader, Busisiwe Seabe. Very good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
Nice to have you back with us. Now, we've heard a lot of murmurs and things are happening. What are you as the movement, what are you guys hearing with regards to the work of the Fees Commission thus far?
I mean, the work of the Fees Commission was something that we had already done as Fees Must Fall, especially at Wits University, through our funding model. But the need for the president to establish his own can be somewhat understandable. So from what we're getting is that they are willing to grant us free education, but for the poor, which is essentially not what we asked for. They haven't spoken about the decolonial element of the Fees Must Fall movement to say that we called for free, quality, decolonized education, and not just free education. So there's a lot that we're not getting as a response, or that the Commission itself did not look into that it should have, which was essentially a waste of time and money yet again.
So what you're saying is, if education is this vehicle to solving all the problems of South Africa, then it should be free for everybody. And all those students that came together over the last couple of years, no matter race, creed, color, whatever, they all fought for one thing. That's nobody should be paying to get educated.
At this point in time, what we're saying is we want free, quality, decolonized education. We're saying we want it to be able to reflect the status quo and the demographics of this country, which is predominantly black. We want it to be able to be African-centered, and we've gone through large extents and large lengths to explain what we mean by that. And outside of that, we want it to be for all, because we see education as a means to an end. And the end goal is economic emancipation and essentially getting our land back. But before we can actually get there, we need the vehicle and the tool of education in order to do so.
You talk about decolonization, and it's a conversation that's an ongoing one here in South Africa. What's your idea of decolonized education? Of course, physics and maths and these kinds of things, it is what it is. You're talking about language, and you're talking about the language that universities speak and sort of the history that they look at. Is that the decolonization?
I mean, it doesn't only just speak to language, it also speaks to how we present ourselves at our institutions of higher learning, how exactly we acquire this education. But more essentially, it should not be structured around Western civilization. It should not be centered around globalization or modernization that perpetuates, Western ideals, but rather should find a way to incorporate African cultures and traditions and customs in this global, arena that we're participating in, which is unfortunately not something that we see. People have have an identity crisis, and the fact that South Africans have a large identity crisis is that our education system is the way it is at the moment.
The million-dollar question that people are asking me is, what's going to happen if you don't get this?
What's going to happen? Everyone wants to know what's going to happen. From what we've been coordinating across universities, UCT had shut down just previously for, the insourcing of workers. As we've mentioned before, Fees Must Fall is intertwined with the workers' struggle, and they had been shutting down, and we're just waiting for our mass meeting to conclude at WITS, and then we'll take it from there.
You talk about the discussions and the collective discussing that you guys are doing. We've seen incidents at other campuses, Cape Town being one area. There are one or two others where emotions are starting to run a little bit high.
Yes.
Is there this real emotional undertone with the discussions going on?
I mean, everything is emotional. Politics on their own is also very emotional. So there are undertones of emotions that are running through students, because you must remember these are students that have been for the past 2 years been brutally violated by the police. They have been shot, arrested, excluded, and so forth. So emotions are really running high, because for them, Fees Must Fall does become the last hope for them to continue not only their studies, but to attain free, quality, decolonized education.
Without being controversial for the sake of being controversial, but that's kind of what I do a little bit, there's a social media idea going around that we now have Fees Must Fall season, and it always seems to be just before the final exams.
Yes, yes.
Well, how do you view that, firstly, and is there a trend developing?
I mean, there seems to be a bit of a trend developing where everyone expects, right, come September, Fees Must Fall is going to start, and then by November, they're back in their exam rooms. And this has a lot to do with, our strategy and tactics, in the sense that we should and we have always prioritized maintaining the movement and making sure that people are aware that we're still alive and we're still fighting for free, quality, decolonized education. But this has also given us time to strategize, and to strategize thoroughly.
Yeah.
And this time, Fees Must Fall is not going to come back in the same way that people had expected it to come back. It might come back around the same time, but it will last longer than it has for the past 2 years. With a different strategy, of course. Yes,
indeed. What's your message then to those hard-working students who are out there burning the midnight oil, studying very hard, and on a little bit of tenterhooks right now, thinking about what's going to happen in the next month as they build up towards the final exams?
I mean, my advice would be they should keep studying. They should keep, vigorously going at their academics, but they should also understand that we chant and pass at the same time, which means we're all expected at the picket line at the same time to maintain our academic excellence. And this is something that we can do. It's something that we've proven we've been able to do. Your Bonginkosi Dlaminis, who were arrested and in prison and still graduated with distinctions, are an example of what we can do as students if we put our minds together. So yes, let everyone continue to chant and pass at the same time.
There are those that are telling me that, we've got in the middle of an economic downturn and subdued economic stimulation and political factors and all the excuses I'm sure that you've heard as well. There are so many reasons why education cannot be free. What are you saying to them?
I mean, if we're able to bail out parastatals, state parastatals like ESCOM, SAA, and so forth, there is money for free, quality, decolonized education. We did mention that we don't want the majority of this money to come from taxpayers' money, but rather from the private sector. I mean, government on its own, including the police, are not assisting the Fees Must Fall movement in hosting private meetings at hotels for millions of rands, when that money could be reinvested into the project of free, quality, decolonized education. So this whole this notion that there is no money, let's start off by stop giving money to SAA and ESCOM and all those other parastatals, then people can start telling us there is no money.
When I win the presidency, I'm making you Minister of Education. No doubt about that.
We might just have a new one. Just hold on to that.
Quickly, in conclusion, I just want you to answer the question. Can we look at the poll that we're running and what people are saying, and maybe you can just respond to the kind of sentiment that's out there. Do you expect more Fees Must Fall protests at South Africa's universities? That's what we are putting forward. Well, we've updated it a little bit now, but 83% are saying, yes, we're expecting more protests. Do you expect the same?
I mean, I'm expecting some sort of a response. more than anything. I wouldn't term it as protest action because we've seen what protest action has done to students and the extent and the hold that it has over students. So there will be something from Fees Must Fall. It might not be direct protest, but we're definitely coming for the state, and we've always said we will make sure that we have free quality decolonized education in our lifetime, and our lifetime is now.
Yep, might not be in my lifetime by the looks of it, but let's have a look at a couple of your tweets before we let her go. Nice to hear someone who has all the answers. Anyhow, some of our tweets. Oh, we don't have those tweets yet. No, we're going to leave it. BCC, thank you very much. No, these are not related to what we're talking about, so you can get rid of those. Thank you very much for joining us today. Lovely to have you with us. I hope that you get a little bit of joy with regards to all of the demands that you guys have.
We can only hope so, and I hope to see you at the picket with the rest of your team as well.
Yeah,
everybody is important.
I can only do my work, which is to work for the nation that is South Africa. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you very much.
BCC with Siabi. She's the Fees Must Fall leader at Wits University. Of course, she tells us there's no such thing as no money. If we can bail out SAA, if we can bail out all of these parastatals, then we can pay for all students, not just those under 600,000 Rand, but for all students to get free, decolonized education. Of course, the big question is around SARS today. Yes, what do you make of the SARS Commissioner Tomoyane's response to the KPMG report? He's clinging onto the report, the guys are saying. Yeah, some of your tweets. This one from Zito Zimano says to us, Moyane doesn't have a reputation himself. He recently lied under oath. Let the thieves fight amongst each other, says Zito. Tough words coming in from Zito there. Yanni says to us, people who live in glass houses should not throw stones. Moyane should be careful that he is treading on thin ice. This one from Zanukolo Sibam says to us, reputational risk has been suffered as a result of the KPMG report. It's only fair that SARS gets recourse in any way possible. Yeah, a reputation manager. That's what they need. Anyhow, let's go to our Facebook page quickly and see what is there. What you're going to look at today is that the civil rights organization Right to Know will on Monday morning protest at the headquarters of South Africa's largest 4 telecommunications companies here in Gauteng to demand a decrease in the price of data. Maybe the students should join them. Then it appears to be back to normal on Tuesday at taxi ranks here in the big cities, Johannesburg and Cape Town. Of course, it was quite violent and chaotic there yesterday. In Nyanga, on the Cape Flats, people have started boarding minibus taxis to their places of work, schools and other destinations. Finally, the UDM, that's a United Democratic Movement's urgent application to interdict Nelson Mandela Bay Metro from removing Mongameli Bobani as the deputy mayor will be heard today in the Port Elizabeth High Court. All of that and more on our Facebook page. You can interact with all that content. But let's go onto the front pages from around the world. Yeah, the UN General Assembly is a big story, I think, globally. But we'll start in Europe, where the Times reports that Theresa May has summoned ministers to a special cabinet meeting at which she will seek to bind Boris Johnson to her vision of Brexit on the eve of a key speech this week. Then, moving to New York, the Wall Street Journal says President Trump's first address to the United Nations General Assembly will lay out a foreign policy rooted in his view of nationalism and sovereignty and anchored by America First principles. Then, down under, the Telegraph reports that Sydney's Islamic leaders have launched a jihad against same-sex marriage, urging Muslims during the sermons to vote no in the postal survey, saying gay love is wrong and denigrating. It is the 21st century. These are still a lot of the views that are out there. The Springboks, of course, are rumoured to be now looking abroad to help bolster the side after what's been an horrific outing against the All Blacks in Albany, north of Auckland, on the weekend. The names of Francois Lowe, Dwayne Vermeulen and others are being bandied about, even Bismarck du Plessis. Now, I'm here with Kendall. Is that the way forward for the box now? One defeat and we push the panic button, as it were?
It's not necessarily a panic button. To be honest, I didn't quite agree with the notion in the first place that one needs to have 30-plus tests if you're playing overseas to play in the Springboks. You know, if somebody's showing is in good form for their side, be it in top 14 or the Aviva Premiership, wherever it is, and they're eligible, they should be allowed to play. So I'm happy that they're looking at a Francois Loh, because Francois Loh is a specialist in his field, and he does the job. Bismarck du Plessis, yes, a bit long in the tooth, but then so is his former front row mate, Bism Tawarir. You know, so I think yes, it's not a panic button, but definitely a relook at the policy needs to be made.
We've seen the dust settle after the victory. Are you happy with the kind of responses or the kind of quotes that you've seen coming out with regards to what the coaching staff are saying?
I'm very happy with what the coaching staff is saying. Definitely not. That we've got learnings that we can take from this. That yes, we had some good defensive efforts. It was knee-jerk reaction, and sometimes you can't really fault Alistair Coetzee to maybe try and defend his staff with that. But with that said, in terms of what our viewers and other fans are saying, we've got three that we can share right now.
Yeah, we'll have a look at it. Of course, we're asking you the question: should the Springboks recall all the European stars into the box side? Yeah, it's a big question, not a trick question. You guys are tweeting us and telling us your views.
Yeah, Malibongo, for example, says select players according to their performance, not by colour or where the player plays.
Michael says, yes, even the retired legends who are in the 50s and 60s. Yes, I still say the coach is not fit to lead the national side. No plan whatsoever, says Michael Sitole.
And we've also got Mzwandile, who says, I'm still hurt and embarrassed by that defeat and really doesn't want to talk about that weekend, doesn't want to talk about the Springboks. So that's what's being said, even, and I think, you know, it resonates with a lot of different people. Yeah. The outing was horrific. It was absolutely shocking. But worse than that is the fact that there's been a litany of errors by this coaching staff.
We have to move on, as we always do. I think as a nation, we sometimes battle with moving on.
Yeah, we do.
We do. But the big boxing match over the weekend turned out to be a bit of a disgrace with a real hometown decision, Triple G against Canelo, and it's really a blight on the sport of boxing, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Adelaide Bird is the boxing judge in question who came up with the most lopsided score this side of the Atlantic.
I think that the last one was a Hagler when something similar happened with Marvin Hagler. And to score it so far in favor of Canelo Alvarez, you know, today, I think she's suspended, is she?
She's been suspended. And just to remind our viewers what we're talking about, I mean, of the three judges, one of them actually had it. Basically, it was so far off. She was 118 to 110, which is very far off what her co-judges had scored. Yeah. Adelaide Bird, apparently, though, she's been an official since 1997. This was her 442nd fight, so she's no novice. She's been at it for some time.
She's obviously deep in the pockets of the promoters.
Clearly, it seems like that. However, it has been said, because the people that have complained about her in the past have said that, you know, some judges can have good nights and some can have bad nights. But when Adelaide Bird has a bad night, she's got it. She seems to be too far away from the score for it to be palatable.
Well, Kendall, I watched the fight, and it's the first time I saw a Mexican crowd boo a Mexican fighter in the ring. They actually booed him out of the ring on the way back, because the Mexicans, I'll give them this, they're very fair when it comes to boxing. They didn't like that decision, and they booed Canelo Alvarez out of the ring, and it wasn't his fault.
It wasn't his fault. He fought as well as he could. He put up as good a fight as he could. He trained hard for it. That was very clear. He was well prepared. He didn't take Triple G for granted. But you got to remember, Triple G is coached by Mexicans, so I think they've also embraced this man for his values and what he espouses, and that's probably why as well.
Yeah, the great Mexican trainer Abel Sanchez was the man in the corner, of course, for Triple G. I'm looking forward to the rematch. Thanks, Kendall. It's going to be a rematch, and let's hope that the judges don't get in the way, because it really is quite good boxing, real boxing. Time now for the weather.
Oh, thank you very much. Let's take a quick look at your weather updates, starting off with what's happening currently. Some isolated showers here along the southern coastline. Later on this evening, we're expecting them to spread towards the Eastern Cape, reaching places like PE later on this afternoon, and overnight we're expecting them in places like Port Alfred and places like Eastland, and otherwise partly cloudy weather over most of KwaZulu-Natal into Mpumalanga province and Zimbabwe. Otherwise isolated showers as well over the DRC expected for today and tomorrow. As the low pressure zone is moving towards the southern parts, we're expecting just isolated showers here along the southern parts, along the eastern parts of the country, including most of East London, which is currently just a partly cloudy with some isolated showers expected overnight, continuing into tomorrow. We're expecting just isolated showers along Swaziland and the low veld of Mpumalanga. Clear skies for the Free State, Northwest and most of the rest of the country. Looking at your temperatures, we do have a warning from the Weather Service for today for high FDI conditions expected in these areas between Upington, Kuruman, going towards Kimberley and those areas. Looking at your maximum temperatures, it is cool still in PE with a high of 21, and places like Cape Town only peaking at 18 degrees for today. Hot weather is expected for Upington at a high of 32 degrees Celsius, while Durban is peaking at 26. Lovely clear sky day. Into the northern parts, we're still expecting clear skies in places like Botswana. A high of 38 is expected if you're in Maun, very hot temperatures, but along the western parts, we're looking at places like Walvis Bay at 19 degrees, still cool in Lüderitz as well at 23, while along the other side of the country, looking at Nampula, peaking at 31, very hot conditions are expected. Into the islands, we're not expecting a lot of weather, only just partly cloudy weather, isolated showers expected in Victoria. Moroni peaking at 31 with those partly cloudy skies. Back towards the DRC, we're expecting clear skies over Kinshasa, while the rest of Congo is expecting partly cloudy weather with isolated showers. Rainfall is expected in Libreville with a high of 28, while along the western parts, we're looking at Dar es Salaam for today, expecting a high of 31 with some isolated showers expected. Kigali as well expecting 27 as your maximum. Cooler weather is expected for Juba with a high of 25. In the north, we're expecting a break in your rainfall, especially here for Ghana. Clear skies after long days of partly cloudy weather with isolated showers. But over the central parts, we're starting to see the equatorial rain belt moving towards the south, and the northern parts are starting to clear up. We're seeing warmer temperatures, especially in the north. But for tomorrow as well, still seeing that break in between Ghana and towards Benin. Isolated showers are expected for Nigeria, although with Lagos peaking in the 20s. We're looking at the temperatures, Cairo peaking in 35, isolated showers in Tripoli, Khartoum peaking at 41, very hot conditions, and Addis Ababa peaking at 22. Agadir still very hot at a high of 41. And last but not least, we're looking at West Africa, where we're expecting clear skies for Bamako and Niamey, and Niamey peaking at 32 as well, mostly sunny, clear and partly cloudy weather for Lagos. I'll leave it here for now. Stay tuned to SABC News.
Your evening well-informed with Primetime News.
Thanks for tuning in. You're watching SABC News Prime. The burning land reform issue was also a point of discussion on the first day.
If you do not have a skills revolution, you will run into the kind of problems that we're having at the moment.
We have funded about 466,000 students, out of about 800,000 students that are in the university system.
South Africa says insufficient electricity and water remains one of the biggest barriers to development and prosperity on the continent.
The top four batsmen in the squad, Hashim Amla, Quinton de Kock, Faf du Plessis and AB de Villiers, are certainties in the starting lineup.
I really believe we cover all bases when it comes to spin bowling, seam bowling, proper pace bowling, and an amazing batting lineup.
Stay tuned every Monday to Sunday from 6 p.m.
I'm Alicia Jali, joining us live from our Johannesburg studios. A quick look now at your current news leaders. Parliament's Communications Committee has decided on 5 names to sit on the SABC's interim board. And the Constitutional Court has directed Social Development Minister Bathabile Dlamini and her department to account for their handling of the social grants contract.
And in tennis, Serena Williams has withdrawn from the BNP Paribas Open in Indian Wells and the Miami Open due to a left knee injury.
We're expecting it to move just in the towards the southern parts of the country, not so much coming towards southern Africa, not even touching the Mozambique channel. It's just going to move back towards the Indian Ocean.
Stay tuned to News Today, Monday to Friday from 3 to 5:30 p.m.
Phones, cloud systems and robots have taken over a lot of what used to be done manually.
Our accounting system is actually based on the cloud.
Google nowadays can tell you where you parked your car.
And Africa's entrepreneurs are using technology to create.
With Pocket Masipala, you can basically do all the services that you would do at the municipality physically by going there, but you can now do them on a mobile app.
Join me, Spumelele Zondi, on Sundays at 9 p.m. on SABC News.
Yeah, welcome back. Good morning to you once again. 10 o'clock Central African time. You're watching Newsroom. I'm live with Kendall Makamate.
And what a day we've had today. And, you know, talking about the Springboks, also talking a little bit about that massive fight of the weekend. But I think bigger than that is Tom Moyane.
Yeah, of course, the story's moved on. We ran a poll a little bit earlier where we saw 95% of you, 895 have voted, said, well, this KPMG report, well, it needs to be dealt with in a sort of criminal capacity, Kendall. This was the final result of that poll we ran yesterday. 895 votes in 95%.
Not surprising at all, because a lot of people were up in arms about what had happened with that report.
Yeah, of course, today we moved it on. So we ask you the follow-up question. Of course, SARS Commissioner Tom Moyane has responded, and he said they're going to launch legal proceedings against KPMG for reputational damage caused when the auditor withdrew the controversial rogue unit report, if you can remember.
And yeah, so I want to find out from you, what do you make of Tom Moyane's response to that report?
Yeah, so a lot of abuse going his way on social media. We're trying to moderate it and keep it clean. Elsa Malan, what does she say, Kendall?
She says he has to face this matter head on. He knew what he'd gotten himself into. They all did. They just didn't expect to get bust so soon. Calling them criminals.
Criminal activities. Memani says to us, I think there's more on that come across as someone who wants sympathy for his wrongdoings, or he just wants to act innocent, says Memani. Interesting views. Keep tweeting us, guys. Keep telling us what you think. Of course, our theme for today, we spoke to all the student leaders as well as the Transformation Network a little bit earlier about what is next in the Fees Must Fall movement. And they pretty much said they can't guarantee anything. And that's what the question alludes to.
Yeah, and that is in itself is not really a surprise, because it has been coming every year for the last few years. Something has been coming around about this time. And we wanted to find out from you, do you expect more Fees Must Fall protests in South Africa's universities in the current climate we find ourselves in? And 82% even are saying, yeah, we do.
Yeah, I asked them the tough question around, well, it seems there's a trend. Every year before the exams, there are protests. And she said, well, it's a mere coincidence.
Oh, wow.
Anyhow, these are some of your tweets.
Let's see what the first one is. Mahafa says, if they don't give free education at universities, we are likely to see more Fees Must Fall protests. The message is clear. Free education is what's wanted.
Yeah, it is clear. Yes, we really need them, says Matthews, of course. Busisiwe told me earlier that, well, the birdies telling the students that only those under 600,000 Rand earners, families, will get free education, and they say they want for everybody.
Sure.
It's a non-negotiable.
Which is what the whole principle of the Fees Must Fall movement was about.
Absolutely. So they're not going to budge on that one, which is the difficult bit ahead. In Springbok Rugby, well, we asked the tough question. Well, should they recall the European Springboks, the big boys, the World Cup winners, Kendall?
Yeah, well, we want to find out, because, like, you know, it's being said that possibly Francois Lowe is going to get a recall for the Wallaby test and so on and so forth. The Sishokum Growing comes and says they have to depend on the local talent. Very clear.
Looks like we're going to become the Brazil of rugby. Nazim Grootboom. No, these players must wear the jerseys with pride. Now, there you go, guys. Keep tweeting us, keep telling us. Kendall, thank you. Time for us to get the headlines. AfriForum is in the High Court this morning to ask the court to review the diplomatic immunity granted to Zimbabwe's First Lady, Grace Mugabe. The UDM's urgent application to interdict the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro from removing Mohameli Bobani as deputy mayor is heard in the Port Elizabeth High Court today. And the Inkatha Freedom Party leader in KwaZulu-Natal is expected to shortly testify before the Morane Commission into political killings there. We'll be live there as soon as they take to the podium, as it's such an important turn of events here in South Africa. But before that, let's go to Kendall for the sports headlines.
Yeah, but thank you very much. Good morning to you. We've got quite a lot to cover in the sports, and this is what we've got for you today. An intriguing clash is on the cards in the Upset Premiership tonight as Orlando Pirates host Cape Town City FC at the F&B Stadium. And the Springboks released 7 players, including 100 Pollard, for Currie Cup duty and could look to their erstwhile forgotten foreign contingent for help. All this is multiple South African record holder Dominique Scott-Efford plans to make waves when she returns home for the first time in 18 months to race in the inaugural Durban K City Surf Run. All this and more a little later on. Should we still be on air? We are, of course, waiting for the Moerane Commission, but Eben will take us further on this.
Yeah, thanks, Kendall. It looks like they're a little bit behind schedule, and we'll be live there as soon as they go live. But our top story at this very hour right now is that AfriForum is in the High Court in Pretoria to ask the court to review the diplomatic immunity granted to Zimbabwe's First Lady Grace Mugabe by the South African government. Mugabe allegedly attacked South African model Gabriella Engels in a Johannesburg hotel with an electric cord just over a month ago. Engels laid a criminal charge against Mugabe, but she was granted diplomatic immunity by the International Relations and Cooperation Ministry. AfriForum's Willie Spiss says they will be asking the court to set aside the diplomatic immunity granted to Mugabe. But the Zimbabwean embassy here has applied for leave to intervene in the matter. According to Spiss, the embassy wants to deflect the matter from Mrs. Mugabe. He says, much as the embassy is welcome to intervene, this matter has to do with Mrs. Mugabe and not the embassy. The Zimbabwean First Lady was recently reported to have given a statement to the South African police denying that she assaulted Engels. Instead, she claimed that an intoxicated and unhinged Engels attacked her with a knife. Engels suffered a deep gash to her forehead and bruising to her body during the alleged encounter with Zimbabwe's First Lady. An urgent application by the UDM to interdict the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro from removing Mohameli Bobani as deputy mayor there is being heard in the Port Elizabeth High Court this morning. Bobani was removed on a vote of no confidence last month. Now the UDM is in coalition with the DA, COPE, the ACDP and the PA in the Metro. In the court papers, Bobani argues that on the day of the motion of no confidence, there was no quorum. A new deputy mayor is expected to be appointed in the next council meeting, depending on the outcome of this urgent application. The Inkatha Freedom Party leader in KwaZulu-Natal is expected to testify before the Morane Commission this morning. Premier Willis Mkunu set up the commission in October of last year to probe political killings in KwaZulu-Natal. The commission is expected to complete its inquiry in October and then make recommendations to the Premier of the province. A number of people have been killed in the province in the build-up to the local government elections and even thereafter. The latest victims of these political killings is the former ANC Youth League National Secretary General Sindiso Magaka and 2 other councillors in Mzumkulu in July. Meanwhile, the Hawks have expressed confidence that they will arrest the suspect linked to the shooting of Magaka and 2 other councillors in Umzimkhulu. This after a man linked to the shooting was amongst the suspects killed in a shootout between police and robbers at Harding just over 2 weeks ago. There have been reports that the suspects were from the KwaMashu Hostel. Now, I told you that we will bring the IFP's testimony at the Commission as soon as it gets underway. It was supposed to start at 10 a.m. this morning, but as I told you, it hasn't kicked off yet. There's nothing there, and as soon as it goes live, we'll take it. Moving on, the National Union of Mine Workers says it will soon engage Impala Platinum after the company announced plans to lay off up to 2,500 workers at its Rustenburg operations in the Northwest Province. The NUM says it will do everything it can to retain its members' jobs. Implats said job cuts were possible after it reported a 2017 loss. The Rustenburg operations been hit by labour strife in recent times. The company says it's struggling to return to profitability. South Africa's mining industry has shed close to 70,000 jobs since 2012. Now, Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs says it expects Minister Hlengiwe Mkhize to brief it soon on her decision to suspend her Director General Mkhuseli Apleni. The Director General has approached his lawyers to fight his suspension. Mkhize made the announcement in a statement. Apleni recently had to fend off questions about how members of the Gupta family were granted citizenship. His lawyer, Sandile July, has dismissed the allegations against him as flimsy, saying his client was reportedly suspended after he failed to arrange a meeting between the Home Affairs Minister, Hlengiwe Mkhize, and staff. July says Apleni received a suspension notice on 4 charges, but that they have no idea which charges relates to this suspension. There have been claims of a possible purge after Apleni told Parliament that then Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba vetoed a departmental decision not to grant citizenship to the Gupta family in 2013. Now, we spoke to Sandile July, who is Mkhuseli Apleni's lawyer. We started by asking him if any reasons were given for this suspension.
The reason for the suspension we don't know, but what we do know is the allegations that were made against him, on which he was invited to make the representations on. And subsequent to that, then we got a letter which does not say anything about the response that was made, except to accept that there's a detailed response that the minister received, but it doesn't say, she doesn't say anything about the merit or the content of the response.
Can you tell us anything about the allegations that were made against him in the first instance?
Listen, these allegations are flimsy allegations. It's allegations about failure to call a meeting with the staff, to meet with the minister, and I think the minister forgot that on 3 occasions, Mr. Apleni called those meetings, and they were cancelled at the instance of the minister. That's one allegation. The other allegation has to do with about Mr. Apleni having asked by the minister to settle matters which are legal matters, where there are legal disputes, and we don't even know what it's referring to. As you would appreciate, Home Affairs has got a lot of litigation matters. So when you say to a person, settle the litigation matter, we don't even tell which litigation matters are you talking about.
The public will also be asking questions about the whole Gupta citizenship affair. Might that have come into play, or you have no idea if it's linked at all?
No, on those allegations, there's nothing. There's no reference to the Gupta issues at all. I don't think it has anything to do with that. Yeah.
The general debate of the United Nations General Assembly kicks off later today with the annual report presented by the Secretary General, followed by the statements from world leaders. Amongst them, US President Donald Trump in his maiden speech at the Assembly. Nigeria's convalescing president also takes to the podium later in the day, as does South Africa's President Jacob Zuma.
President Trump dipped his toes in the water yesterday with a short appearance at the UN on Monday, but all eyes will be on his first address to the General Assembly, where observers, diplomats and foreign nations will hope to get clarity on his vision for the United States and its place in the world today. The US leader had been critical of the United Nations, but appears to have softened his tone. His speech to the General Assembly likely to focus on the threat posed by North Korea's nuclear weapons program, Washington's unease with the Iran nuclear deal, and how his America First policy informs his administration's approach to the UN and multilateralism in general. President Zuma, who is scheduled to speak second to last in the evening on Tuesday, is expected to sharpen his message on the need for Security Council reform and support for the global development agenda, especially in terms of financing for poorer countries. Nigeria's convalescing president, Muhammadu Buhari, is in New York on his first international trip since returning home from medical treatment in London, while other notable speeches on Tuesday will include Zambia's Edgar Lungu, Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu, and a few additional first appearances, France's Emmanuel Macron and Gambia's President Adama Barrow, who has been in office for just 8 months. President Zuma will also attend a traditional luncheon for heads of state hosted by Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and a reception later tonight for heads of state and spouses hosted by President Trump. Sherman Briceby's SABC News, New York.
Let's shift our focus now to the African continent. French biometric firm says the electronic voting system due to be used in the rerun of Kenya's presidential poll will not be ready in time for next month's election. The firm wants the October 17 vote to be postponed for a week, while the Kenyan opposition wants the company taken off the job.
Kenya's Supreme Court is expected to give its full ruling on the annulment of the August 8th general elections on Tuesday. Meanwhile, on the campaign trail, both sides are digging in. None is willing to cede ground.
These people are not ready for an election. That is why they have a quarrel with everybody. They have a quarrel with the commissioners of IBC. They want IBC commissioners removed. They want the secretariat to be removed. They do not want the printer of ballot papers. They do not want the supplier of technology. And yet they want to pretend that they want to participate in an election.
We are ready for elections even tomorrow. But we will not go to elections with a compromised IBC, the company called Safran Mofa from France, which colluded in trying to subvert the will of the people of Kenya, must go. The company called Al Ghurair of Dubai must go. Then we are ready to meet Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto in a level playing field.
This weekend, it emerged that Safran Mofa, the technology company that designed the elections transmission kits, needs more time to reconfigure the equipment specifically for the repeat polls. That's another reason the first presidential elections may be delayed. The Electoral Commission has called President Uhuru Kenyatta and his rival Raila Odinga for a meeting on Wednesday to discuss the possibility of a date change and other emerging issues.
Now, of course, our theme today, we're dealing with tertiary education, but we look at education in general. The 2017 PPS Student Confidence Index survey conducted amongst nearly 2,500 students across the country has revealed that less than half of respondents felt that they were prepared for the transition from secondary school into tertiary education. Only 49% of respondents felt that they were prepared. This represents an 8% decline from 2016 and marks the first time in 3 years since the survey was started that the percentages dropped to below 50%. The PPS Student Confidence Index was conducted among students in their 4th year or above, studying at a public university or University of Technology towards a profession-specific degree such as engineering, medicine, law, or even accounting. To talk to us about this difficult transition, well, we are joined by Motsabi Nomvete, who is the PPS Technical Marketing Specialist. A very good morning to you, my dear. Thank you for being with us today.
Morning, Evan. Thank you.
I found it very difficult myself, the transition from school. But what's worrying, it seems as if more and more students are thinking that it's a difficult transition and the numbers are getting worse.
It's not as easy. They are now realizing that it's not that easy. And remember that the people that we have surveyed, like you said, they are already in their 4th year of study. So they've passed matric some 3-4 years ago. But more importantly, these are the survivors, because these are the guys and girls who've lived to see almost 50% of their friends, their colleagues, their classmates actually drop out of university. So now, with the benefit, obviously, of retrospection, they're now saying, sure, well, one, at least I made it this far, but how was it when I had to make the transition, which is not easy at all. And if you break down that question even further to say, what do they feel they were not really ready for, that's when it starts getting even more interesting. The first thing that they found that they battle with is that the expected pass rate in tertiary is very different to the pass rate in secondary school. Because remember, for our high school scholars, they're able to get away with 30s, 40%, 50s and 60s. Suddenly you get to university or tertiary. Firstly, there's a year mark component. So if you don't pass your assignments, you don't pass the tests along the way, you might not even be able to sit for the exam. And then also the university is not going to settle for less than 50% as a pass rate. So that's a huge, huge shock to their system to say, sure, I guess I need to pull my socks up. And yes, we can argue that most people who do make it into university are the ones who pass with better marks. But the fact is they did get away with a 30 and possibly even 40% in the lower grades.
Mutsabi, what I'm hearing is rather alarming, because what I'm hearing is that our secondary schools and the low pass rates in the secondary schools are not preparing our children for tertiary education.
They're not. And it's, one of the other simple things that the guys really battle with. The choice between maths, pure maths, and maths literacy. Because another thing that students are finding themselves in when they get to tertiary is that they can't register necessarily for the courses they wanted because they did maths literacy and not maths, pure maths itself. So then they get their matric certificate, they're happy. They get to university and say, well, you can't register for your choice of subjects because you don't have maths. And it's like, well, when did this happen and how did it happen? Because they are not given the right advice, or they do maths literacy for the wrong reasons, because people do believe that it's easier. And the more easier subjects you can have in grade 12, the better the chances are of passing, which is true. But long term, that actually does set you back quite substantially.
How do we fix it? What do we do with the curriculums at school? What's your advice?
It's many debates with absolutely everybody. And I always say, obviously, as a parent, it starts with the parent. If you have a child in school, you need to teach them skills like perseverance. Don't go for the easy route. Don't follow what everybody else is doing. If you want to do certain subjects, ask yourself why. Understand why you're doing it. And how do you get to that point? By speaking to professionals, by speaking to people in industry, in the industries that you are interested in, to say, what are the skills that I need? And besides the academic textbook knowledge, what are the other skills, what we call transferable skills? Does my job require me to communicate, for example? Then let me sharpen up my communication skills. Does it require me to do presentations, to be on TV? Does it require me to analyze numbers to death?
How do I work with people that I don't like?
Exactly. I mean, it's funny how it's those little things that are going to push you over the edge for you to either hate what you're doing completely or that just make you miserable every day. So you have to make an informed decision, like I said, based on, you would need an academic solid background and foundation for that. That's the one thing. But there's so many other skills, and you can only do that through talking. Corporates, government also needs to get involved by having career fairs, more informed career fairs. Offering mentorship, internships, vacation work, bring a girl child to work or a boy child or any child to work, exposing them to different things, because you can only make a proper decision if you have been exposed to all the elements of it.
And our students are obviously feeling the pressure. They're under pressure academically, but there's a lot going on our campuses as well, outside of the academic stuff. Is that playing a role also in this difficult transition? The fees must fall, the financial pressures, the I need to dress nice, all that stuff?
All these things. It's life, because remember, when you're at home, you've got mom and dad who are hopefully protecting you quite along the way. Suddenly, you need to manage your own time. You need to study by yourself or not. You could party all night long, or you would sit and you need to figure that out yourself. Like you said, the balance between what do I need, what do I want, and how do I make, meeting different people, what do you do with them? Safety issues. I mean, that's become a huge issue on campus as well. How do I stay safe? How do I become streetwise on campus without being so too cool for the school?
It's a lot of pressure.
So it's a plethora of stuff that they need to know. And like I said, ask. You know, there's been other people. Surely there's people in your community, in your church, in your environment who've been through them, who maybe a nerd, who was a perceived nerd. How did they get through it? You know, being teased, being ridiculed, whatever. Speak to people so that you can equip yourselves, because you're not going to live long enough to make all the mistakes yourself. So rather learn from the rest of us who've made them.
Stand on the shoulders of giants is what I've always been told, is that you don't have to make the mistakes other people have made. Read their books and then stand on their shoulders and you get a bit higher.
And people love talking about themselves. If you sit a person down and you ask them, tell me about yourself, very few people will shy away from that.
Absolutely,
so they will be happy to share that knowledge with you. Just approach them and ask them. You'll be surprised how much you can learn just from that.
Quickly, we're running out of time, but I see the Department of Education is saying bring the pass marks down even more.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
That is frightening. The closing date for comments for that was already in August. I think submissions have already been made. Obviously, at the time, we were appealing to corporate and obviously universities, institutions to also make their submissions. But like I said, this also starts with conversations with parents at home. Encourage your kids to be more, because you know your child more. Do not settle for somebody telling you that your child cannot do X, Y, and Z if you believe that they can.
Matsabi, fantastic to talk to you. Great energy you bring here today. And yes, it is all of our responsibility to get involved in our children's academic careers and help them to untangle this very difficult process they go through while being so hormonal. It's really difficult to be a student. I found it horrific, to be honest. Thank you once again, my dear.
Thank you. Thank you.
Matsabi Nombete, she's the PPS Technical Marketing Specialist, talking to us about this very interesting survey about how difficult students are finding the transition from school into universities with everything that is happening on our campuses. Now, the IFP leader, Mzwankosi Blessed Gwala, is currently giving testimony at the Morani Commission in Durban. Let's go there live.
On political opponents, close quotations, contributing to, quote-unquote, to a spiral of violence. Perhaps more pointedly, in December 1992, police testified to the Goldstone Commission investigating violence in KwaZulu-Natal that the ANC was waging an aggressive war on the IFP by military means, and that the IFP was disadvantaged in its resistance to the ANC's onslaught because it lacked the quantity and sophistication of the weaponry available to the ANC. The Goldstone Commission failed to probe these issues or give reasons for discounting them, and the violence continued. All of this is significant because the political violence that still continues today and that the Commission is tasked with investigating involves the very same protagonists. The inclusion of the NFP does not signify a new and a different conflict that can be studied independently or independent of anything that happened prior to the genesis of the NFP. Indeed, the conflict between the NFP and IFP is simply a continuation of the conflict between the ANC and the IFP. For the birth of the NFP was funded and strategized by the ANC. This is not a conjecture, but objective fact based on the evidence tabled before Parliament by the IFP's president, to which not a single leader of the ANC, including the president, offered any contradiction. The fact of the ANC-NFP alliance immediately after the 2011 elections forces even a cynic to accept the link between these two parties. The Premier himself was vehemently and publicly spoken of the need to protect the ANC-NFP coalition. On the 2nd of October 2012, as the ANC's MEC for Transport, Safely and Communitalizing, Mr. Mkhunu officiated at a sword turning ceremony in Umches. This was a sword turning on a multi-million rand public transport facility being constructed in Ward 4.
Mr. Gwala, please pause. Umches, please.
Okay.
She will spell it, Mr. Kwala.
Oh, Umchezi.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
The Kwala's isiZulu name, which is spelled as Muzziwenkosi, and Umchezi is spelled as UMTSHEZI.
Proceed, Mpepet.
Okay, thanks. This was a short turning on a multi-million rand public transport facility being constructed in Ward 4. However, the ceremony was inexplicably held in Ward 8, where a by-election was due to take place. During his remarks, Mr. Willis Mkhunu, accused opposition parties of killing an ANC councillor in order to steal a municipality. He assured opposition councillors present that the ANC was not scared of such nobodies, and pointed out how the ANC had killed the Boers, who, he explained, were a stronger enemy than the current opposition. Explaining his words later, he said, I quote, "I spoke strongly against the present maneuvers by certain people to deal a deadly blow to the ANC-NFP working agreement. I was at the forefront during the negotiations toward the ANC-NFP agreement, and it must be protected by all means," unquote. It must be remembered that in October 2012, eThekwini IFP Ward 39 councillor, Mr. Temba Ulu, was kidnapped by people posing as policemen.
Please pause.
For the record, Temba is spelled as Themba and Ulu is Xulu.
In fact, Chairperson, may I make this proposal? I see that henceforth there will be a lot of isiZulu names. May I propose that they be spelled after the conclusion of each paragraph, as opposed to sentence? Yeah, very well. Thank you. Mr. Kwala, will you then kindly pause after each paragraph wherever there is an isiZulu word, but I will assist you in that regard.
Yeah. When IFP members came to support the distraught Ulu family, one of our members, Ms. Eliwe Shezi, was gunned down by NFP members. Councillor Ulu was found dead a few days later, riddled with bullets. Shortly after that, IFP member Mr. Bongani Lushaba was murdered in Wamashu. The public perception is that police are involved in the kidnapping and murder of Councillor Ulu. That perception is vindicated by the fact that Councillor Ulu's case has not been pursued by the police in order to identify those people who are impersonating police officers, and thereby clear the name of the police. At some stage, it was agreed that Major General Jula will take the file to his task team and pursue this case.
Please pause.
For the record, Celiwe is spelled as Celiwe, and Shezi is spelled as Shezi. Bongani is spelled as Bongani. Lushaba is Lushaba. And General Jula is spelled as Jula. Thank you. Kwamashu is capital K, WA, capital MASHU.
Thank you. Proceed, Mr. Kwala.
In the midst of this, a delegation of the NFP met with the then MEC Willis Mkhunu as the chairperson of the multi-party task team on political violence, of which I'm a member, expressing their commitment to peace and calling for the end of violence in KwaMashu. A member of the same delegation attended the court case of NFP members who were on trial for the murder of the IFP's Celiwe Shares. Outside the court, in broad daylight, and in front of both the media and the police, he took out a gun and shot dead the IFP Siyabonga Dlamini.
Siyabonga Dlamini. Siyabonga is capital S-I-Y-A-B-O-N-G-A. Dlamini is capital D-L-A-M-I-N-I.
These four murders of the IFP members were all politically motivated. There are many others that have taken place between 2011 and today. But as I have related, the matters did not begin in 2011. They are not different to the matters that were occurring before 2011. And they cannot be studied in isolation from the matters that came before. By the way of analogy, immediately before the 1994 elections, KwaZulu-Natal endowed 19 political matters over the course of just 3 days. But it would be meaningless to study those 19 matters without referring to the 20,000 deaths that preceded them as a consequence of the ANC's People's War. There are trends from the political violence prior to 2011 that remain unchanged. One is extremely poor record of investigation into matters of IFP leaders and members, and the very low conviction rate. Whether this speaks of a lack of political will or simply ineffective policing, the fact remains that crime escalates when there is a perceived lack of consequences. The IFP believes that many matters and attempted murders would never have taken place except for the belief on the part of the perpetrators that they were politically protected from punishment. During the ANC's People's War, some 400 leaders of the IFP were systematically assassinated. To date, there have been hardly a single conviction. I attached a list of the names together with the details of all these assassinations.
Mr. Gwala, that list is that Exhibit L that is entitled Inkatha Freedom Party Office Bearers Killed?
Yes.
We'll talk about that shortly. Proceed.
The IFP has pleaded for an investigation into these political matters for more than 2 decades. We submitted a plea to then President de Klerk, to President Mandela, and subsequently to President Mbeki, but no commission of inquiry was ever established. So the question must be asked, why a commission of inquiry has only been established now, and why its investigations have been limited to the period after 2011. There is no doubt that much of the current violence is intra-party violence with the ANC and the NFP, but the murder of IFP members and leaders is still continuing, and there are still very few convictions. The perception remains that politically connected hitmen are acting with impunity. We still have no answers for the family of Councillor Patrick Ngubane, who was shot and killed in at Kagiso Hostel on the 19th July 2014, or for the family of Mr. Alsin Kosi, who was shot dead in Abaqulusi on the 17th June 2016, or for the families of Mr. Sianda Mguni and Mr. Thokozani Majola, who were shot at point-blank range on the 23rd July 2016, or for the family of Mr. Mtupeni Mboni, who was shot dead by an ANC member on the 2nd August 2016, or for the family of the IFP branch chairperson, Mrs. Simosake Ndlovu, who was shot multiple times outside his home on the 19th December 2016, seeing the fulfillment of a series of death threats, or for the family of Ms. Lungsani Stole, who was stabbed to death on the 19th December 2016, and he returned from his father's funeral in Esikawini, or for the family of Mr. Mduduzi Eric Kupega, whose body was found along the side of the road in Godini on the 21st February 2017.
For the records, Patrick Ngubane spelled as Ngubane, and Alsin Kosi spelled as Nkosi, Abaqulusi spelled as capital Abaqulusi, Sianda Mguni spelled as Siyanda Mguni, Mnguni. Thokozani Majola spelled as Thokozani, Majola, Majola. Mtupeni Mboni is Mcupeni, and Mboni is Mboni. Simosake Ndlovu, Simosake is Simosakhe, and Ndlovu is Ndlovu. Lungisani Sithole, Lungisani is Lungisani, Sithole is Sithole. Esikawini is ESIKH.
I'm sorry, was it Esikaleni or Esikawini? Which what we have here is Esikaleni.
I agree with you, Chair. It's Esikaleni. Should be Esikaleni.
Yes.
Should be read as Esikaleni.
Okay. Then Esikaleni is E capital SIKHALENI. And Mduduzi Kupega, Mduduzi is spelled as MDUDUZI. Kupega is KUBHEKA. In Godini is spelled as capital NGODINI.
Chairperson, there are many serious issues that trouble us, and I shall mention just a few here. One, a number of Amakos have been killed over the past few years. No state apparatus was put in place to investigate the killings of Inkosi Shaba of Port Shepstone, Inkosi Vigwala of Donnybrook, Inkosi Linda Matonsi of Mandeni, Inkosi Zondi of Umvoti, Inkosi Beyiphika Johannes Mdluli from Umkhanyakude, Inkosi Magongo Bheka Inkosi Gwala of Emaphepheteni in Indwedwe, who was brutally slaughtered like an animal by the ANC youth in his traditional courthouse in 1990. There was no offer of rewards for the arrest and conviction of any of their killers. After such killings, a task team would be put in place to investigate, but we do not receive any reports on the progress of such investigations. This is a clear sign that the killing of Amakosi is not considered as a high priority crime. It must be remembered that Amakosi are public representatives and have an important role to play in the communities that they represent.
For the records, Inkosi Lushaba, Inkosi is I-N-K-O-S-I with capital I, and Lushaba is L-U-S-H-A-B-A. Inkosi Gwala, Gwala is G-W-A-L-A. Inkosi Linda Matonsi, Linda is spelled as L-I-N-D-A, Matonsi is M-A-T-H-O-N-S-I. Of Mandeni, Mandeni is spelled as M-A-N-D-E-N-I. Inkosi Zondi of Umvoti, Zondi is Z-O-N-D-I, and Umvoti is U capital M-V-O-T-I. Inkosi Beyphika Mdluli, Nkosi Beyphika is N-K-O-S-I-B-E-Y-I-P-H-I-K-A. Mdluli is M-D-L-U-L-I. From Umkhanyakude, Umkhanyakude is U capital M K-H-A-N-Y-A-K-U-D-E. Inkosi Magongo Beg, Inkosi Gwala, Magongo is M-A-G-O-N-G-O. Beg Inkosi is B-H-E-K-I-N-K-O-S-I. Ugwala has been spelled before, and of Emma Pepeteni, Emma Pepeteni is E-M-A-P-H-E-P-H-E-T-H-E-N-I, and with a capital E from the beginning of the word. In Indwedwe, Indwedwe is spelled as capital N-D-W-E-W-E. I think that's the last one for this paragraph.
Yes, I think Indwedwe is N-D-W-E-D-W-E.
Thanks, Chairperson.
Proceed, Mr. Gwala.
Thank you very much. Two, during the 2014 elections, the station commander of the Wembezi police station at Tumches, Superintendent Mlaba, was recorded during the morning parade when he instructed policemen to shoot IFP members and not to be scared of them. He said that they must use the material they have, referring to their guns. He said that they must protect the ANC because it was the ANC who liberated the country. He also said that the IFP are a bunch of killers that will perish in the next election. We made the tapes or the tape available to the previous MEC. That case was not resolved. We feel that the IFP cases are not properly investigated because of influence by superiors. The MEC for Community Safety and Liaison, Willis Mkunu, promised to have the matter investigated by IPID. To this day, there has been no response from either the MEC or IPID. To us, as the IFP, we feel that this is nothing but a cover-up.
For the record, Wembezi Police Station, Wembezi is spelled as capital W-E-M-B-E-Z-I. Mlaba, for Superintendent Mlaba, is spelled as M-L-A-B-A.
Proceed, sir.
Thank you. 3. Bongani Chali was shot and killed in 2010 by members of the Friends of VZ. This shooting took place in a broad daylight after the funeral of Councillor Duma and in front of the SAPS from Wembesi police station and community members.
Bongani Chalinchali. Bongani is B-O-N-G-A-N-I. Chalinchali is N-T-S-H-A-L-I-N-T-S-H-A-L-I. Duma is D-U-M-A.
Proceed. Number 4.
Number 4, Mtembeni Majola was shot in 2010, which resulted in him being wheelchair bound. He's sitting next to me. During the court case, Crime Intelligence Police never come to testify, and there were threats that his attackers would strike again.
Mtembeni Majola. Mtembeni is M-T-H-E-M-B-E-N-I. Majola is M-A-J-O-L-A.
Proceed, Mr. Kwala.
5. After several previous attempts, Zama Mkwanazi was shot and killed in the morning in 2010 on the road in the area called Loxloy. No arrest has been made to date. He was the newly elected IFP Mbabazane constituency chairperson. He was getting threats from the Friends of VZ that he can't be the chairperson.
Zama Mkwanazi. Zama is Z-A-M-A. Mkwanazi is M-K-H-W-A-N-A-Z-I. Mbabazane is capital M-B-A-B-A-Z-A-N-E.
Proceed.
6. There was also the case of the ambush of an IFP taxi coming from Ulundi in 2010. IFP councillors and members were in the taxi that was attacked. Fortunately, the taxi was escorted by members of SABC, who also chased the attackers, who abandoned their car in the bush. The police arrested one suspect who was associated with the Friends of VZ, but the outcome of the case or its status is still unknown.
I don't think there's anything to spell there, but please proceed.
Right. 7. In the Zwelisha area, the father of Njabulo Mabasa, who was the treasurer in the IFP's Mbabazade structure, was shot and killed. He was carrying a 2-year-old child who was also shot dead. It was said at the time that the killing was to revenge Councillor Duma. The investigating officer was Mr. Vitima from the Wembesi police station. No arrest has been made to date.
In Zwelisha area, Zwelisha is spelled as capital Z-W-E-L-I-S-H-A. Njabulo Mabaso. Njabulo is spelled as N-J-A-B-U-L-O. Mabaso is M-A-B-A-S-O. Vidima is V-I-D-I-M-A.
Proceed, sir.
8. It is also of great concern that it seems that political interference in police investigations is continuing. An example of this is that several IFP councillors were arrested only days before the by-election. In May 2017, after the municipality was dissolved by the MEC for Kokta, councillors from Ngutu, These councillors were arrested for the so-called crimes that took place in November 2016. The Ingutu police case number is 1203/17. And the other in January 2017, Ingutu police case number 1345/17. The January 2017 case is that of an Induna, who is an IFP councillor, who caught people cutting down trees on his Inkosi's land. He confiscated the chainsaw that was used and handed it to the police when he reported the matter at the Ngotu police station. Again, just days before May 2017 by-election, he was arrested on a charge of robbery in connection with the chainsaw. This is obviously ludicrous because the complainant in this case is unknown, and this smacks of political interference.
Proceed.
With regard to the killings in eThekwini, it is our view as the IFP that the eThekwini municipality must take full responsibility for not investigating allegations that people were selling beds at the hostels. This is illegal and has led to overcrowding and numerous social ills. It is common knowledge that people flock to eThekwini in search of work and a better life. Due to this influx of people, accommodation is difficult to find and very expensive for people who are either unemployed or are earning very little. This creates opportunities for those who have rooms at the hostels to exploit those who are desperate for a place to live. The small rooms at the hotels have become overcrowded and have become hiding places for assassins and other criminals. These buildings are not well maintained by the municipality. Sewer system malfunction, water pipes are leaking, lighting is very bad, and the bush on the grounds are overgrown. Such conditions are ideal for criminal activities, as is evidence from the ongoing killings. The municipality is not taking the issue of violence around Durban seriously, since it has representation on the multi-party intervention committee, but there is no member that attends the meetings.
eThekwini. eThekwini.
eThekwini is EThekwini.
Proceed, Mr. Kwala.
Yes. On the 28th of June 2015, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi met with hostel dwellers at their request at the Edward Hotel in Durban, with 3 representatives from each hostel around Durban. The hostel dwellers were led by Mr. Mthembiseni Thusi, who is the chairperson of Bunye Bama Hostel. As ordinary people, regardless of their political affiliations, they wanted to meet him as Prime Minister to the King and the Zulu nation. They wanted him to secure a meeting with the King with the sole intention of seeking the King's intervention in quelling the violence in Durban. As I was also invited to the meeting, I suggested in that meeting that His Majesty should be the last resort after taking their concerns to the provincial government via the MEC for Community Safety and Liaison, Willis Mkhunu. 2 days later, I met with MEC Willis Mkhunu and the chairperson of the Community Safety and Liaison Portfolio Committee, Honorable Peggy Ntuli. To this date, neither the then MEC for Community Safety, Willis Mkhunu, then Premier Senzo Mkhunu, nor the chairperson of the Community Safety and Liaison Portfolio Committee, Honorable Peggy Ntuli, has met with the delegation and taken up their offer to assist government in finding solution to the violence.
For the records, Mthembiseni Thusi. Mthembiseni is M-T-H-E M-B-I-S-E-N-I. Thusi is T-H-U-S-I. Ubunye bama hostela is capital U-B-U-N-Y-E B-A-M-B-A-H-O-S-T-E-L-A. Peggy Ntuli. Peggy is B-H-E-K-I and Ntuli is N-T-U-L-I.
I think there's a misspelling of Bunyabama Hostel.
Ubunyabama Hostela, according to the records, it's written one name. I'm not sure whether the chairperson wants me to spell it in two different, like in two separate names.
No, there is a B there, the third B, which should not be there.
Oh, okay. Ubunye bama hostela, it's U-B-U-N-Y-E B-A-M-A-H-O-S-T-E-L-A.
Thank you.
Chairperson, I think there's a name that was omitted, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi.
I think everybody knows that.
That's fine then.
Thanks, Chair. Then our concern is that there are many other people who have been killed, but it is difficult to say whether these were politically motivated because the police have not investigated fully and have not given feedback to the families. We also have names of IFP leaders who have been killed in many other areas, such as Watuguza, Umhlatuze, and Port Shepstone, but we are unable to get accurate details of those cases since families move away from those areas due to intimidation.
For the records, Watuguza is capital K-W-A, capital D-U-K-U-Z-A. Umhlatuze is U, capital M, H-L-A-T-H-U-Z-E.
Then, as I continue, okay.
It must.
It must also be said that while some of the killings are the result of criminal activity and general lawlessness, what is of concern to people on the street is the incompetence on the part of the police and the justice system. It is our view that there's to be an investigation into the allegations that weapons used in many killings come from the police. One wonders if some police officers are complicit in these killings in order to benefit financially. There must be an investigation into the allegation that some of police officers turn to criminal activity during the times when they are not on official police duty, since they have access to sensitive information which is used in committing crimes. Such police officers destroy people's lives and demean the subs while they derive personal benefit. There are many families still in mourning, but their loss is simply not a priority for the police investigation. We hope that the Commission will shed light on these matters, but we also ask that it take into account this submission by the IFP by recommending that investigation be pursued into all political matters that remain unresolved. This would undoubtedly shed light on the underlying causes for the continuation of political violence in KwaZulu-Natal. It is our perception that the infighting in the ANC is largely due to a struggle for positions and business contracts, while entrepreneurs have become disparate in securing contracts. Politicians and would-be politicians have become equally disparate to secure positions within structures and in all three tiers of government. The policy of cadre deployment to lucrative positions with the administrations of municipalities and the legislature has added to incompetence and corrupt practices. Once comrades within the ANC see their colleagues becoming wealthy through ill-begotten gains, they also want a share of the ever-dwindling pie. This has seen an increase in violence among members of the ANC who are constantly jostling for position. Chairperson, I'm also attaching here to a submission made by the IFP to the Multi-Party Peace Summit on Political Violence that took place on the 14th August 2012, which speaks to the IFP's perception on the influence of corruption in the escalation of political violence. I also have an addendum to my report, which is a response to the City Press article. Chairperson, in this City Press, last week, we also attached two articles, in fact, that appeared in the City Press this past Sunday, 17 September 2017, issued by high-profile leaders in the ANC, and both these articles speak directly to the issue of violence in KwaZulu-Natal. The Article 1, which talks about "Tell Us Where the Guns Are" by Peggy Cele. It is unfortunate that Cele considers this Commission's work as nothing more than a storytelling exercise. It must be remembered that Peggy Cele was once the MEC for Community Safety in KZN and then went on to become the National Police Commissioner. Having occupied both these high-profile positions, Cele should have vital information that he should share with this commission. It does not help when Cele is quoted as blaming the IFP for the long-standing culture of political killings. While Cele wants to know where the arms catchers are, it must be remembered that the IFP leader, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, is on record for making calls for the arms catchers to be revealed and handed over to the relevant authorities, but this has never happened. The Article 2 is in Kabi, the scores of hitmen in our midst. In this article, Premium Kun implies that Izinkabi or hitmen and those involved in cash in transit haste are IFP members because they belong to the self-protection unit that could not be reintegrated while the MK members were reintegrated into the Defense Force. He is quoted as saying that those who could not be reintegrated had two options: join the ranks of the Zinkabi or taking part in the cash in transit haste. This is wholly untrue because people also had the option of becoming law-abiding citizens and seeking legal work options. It is disingenuous to imply that these people only saw crime as a means of earning a living. Such statements are inflammatory and baseless, if not supported by hard facts. Chairperson, we find it strange that both these articles would be published a day before this commission was to commence this hearing this week in Durban. It is our view that the comments made by both Premier Wilson Mchunu and the Deputy Minister Bheki Cele are not supportive of this Commission's work, nor do they in any way assist in stemming the violence in the province. Lastly, Chairperson, I just want to quote on the 19th, that is Tuesday today, in the Mercury, where Mkhwanazi of the ANC testified in this commission. The killings will stop once the ANC is out. I'll quote just two paragraphs by Tami Makubane. Political motivated killings, it's not the IFP, is an ANC member that is actually talking. Political motivated killings that have ravaged KwaZulu-Natal will only stop if the ANC is voted out of power. Then, if I can jump to another one, is that Mkhwanazi said that the ANC was troubled by the increasing number of factions, manipulation of councillor lists, and corruption that was playing out in municipalities. We appreciate, as the IFP, the Commission's attention to these important issues, and we avail ourselves for further engagement. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Kwala. The last document, would you like that to be handed in as an exhibit before the Commission? The last one, addendum.
Yes.
Exhibit M, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Chairperson, I propose that we continue, say, until 11:30 and then take a short break.
Yes, I think there's another document which has not been distributed. I think it's an extract from today's Mercury, to which Mr. Gwala was referring.
Yes, I'd ask the Secretariat to make a copy, 9 copies for everyone, and then that will form an attachment to Exhibit M, just like the 2 City Press articles.
Yes. Sure. Please proceed then.
Thank you. Mr. Gwala, let's deal with some of the things that you said in Exhibit J. I'm on the 2nd page of Exhibit J, the 3rd paragraph. The first presentation in Exhibit J, your main presentation, I'm on the 2nd page, page 2, the 3rd paragraph, where you talk about the last sentence, in fact, the IFP is asserting that the birth of the NFP was funded and strategized by the ANC. Is that the IFP's theory, or is it more than a theory? Is it factual?
Chairperson, it is not a theory, it is a fact. And I've alluded to the fact that Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, as president of the IFP and also a member of the National Assembly, presented these facts on the floor of Parliament with the president of the Republic, president of the Republic of South Africa, and not a single one opposed that. And there were facts with him, not just an off-the-cuff thing, because there were some things that he actually distributed in the National Assembly.
Linked to that, Mr. Kwale.
And also, it has been also, when Willis Mkhunu also is saying the very same thing, that indeed it's happening.
I saw that. The assertions that you attribute to Premier Willis Mkhunu, is that part of the proof that you say makes this assertion factual, that the birth of the NFP was funded and strategized by the ANC? In other words, are you also basing that conclusion on what you allege Premier Willis Mkhunu said?
Yes, in fact, I must say that it is true. In fact, people from the NFP are coming to the IFP en masse because some were part of these deliberations when they went to the the ANC. It was a matter of an agreement between the two. The main reason was to destroy the IFP from within.
I see. Let me just clarify that I understand what you're saying. Are you saying some of the members of the NFP who have returned to the IFP have actually confirmed that?
Yes, there are some who have confirmed, yes.
You've also answered the question that I was going to ask next, but I'd ask you to repeat it anyway. In the IFP's view, what do you believe was the motivation for the funding of the NFP and the strategy behind the forming of the NFP by the ANC?
No, this thing actually comes from a long way, because the ANC had a strategy of a one-party state in South Africa. Firstly, is that everybody in South Africa must become an ANC. When they talk as if everybody is free to form his own organization. But what they say is different from what they do. Even the NADECO was actually funded by the ANC, but unfortunately it also failed.
Sorry, before you proceed, as I said, we don't want to assume that we know things here. Briefly tell the Commission about NADECO. What is NADECO? Where did it come from? And what is its current status?
The NADECO was a splinter party from the IFP, which was led by none other than Dr. Zibachian.
Yes.
Who was a member of the legislature and also once a chairperson, national chairperson of the party, and then he was funded to form an organization so that he can take more members from the IFP to NADECO.
Funded by who?
By the same organization. That is the ANC. That's why he had a tender for 100 million to run buses in Richards Bay. But when he failed, and then they cut off the tender.
All right. What is the current status of Nadeco? Is it still existent?
It's not existing now.
All right. Let's.
Then they continued now to take the former national chairperson, Gamakwaza Msebi, to also to divide the party so that he can form her own. That's why she took us to court, because he wanted actually to take and own the IFP, to the ANC.
I don't envy the interpreter.
Iyoba is spelled as I-Y-O-B-A. Umjonjo is U-M-N-J-O-N-J-O.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not sure whether I'll give the correct explanation or of Umjonjo, but it's something.
No, sorry.
Okay.
That's not necessary to speculate. Mr. Kwala, explain what that means. Even if it's Zulu, then it can be interpreted. Or in English if you want.
Umjonjo, I'll say it in Zulu.
Sure.
Umjonjo, kuyakuthi intombi qoma. Bese kuba khona nje sipho nje esihle esikhishwayo. Sikhishwe nje ukubonga ukuthi awu waze wasebenza. Sesiyonikezwa ke lo okuyena onikeliwe kuyena owesifazane enikezwa ilona wesilisa umjojo ke lo.
Ngamanye amazwi insizwa le eqonyiwe inikeza intombi leso sipho.
Insizwa mayisiqonyiwe ijabula kuze kweqe.
Yebo.
Bese ke ikhipha noma yini nje isipho nje sokuthi hawu ngiyabonga ukuthi ngiqonywe wena ngoba kade ngihlupheka.
Okay. Can that be explained in English, please?
If I heard it clearly, it's a gift from a male person who has received love from a girl, just to say thank you for accepting my love.
Thank you. That's a sweet and short version. Let's proceed, Mr. Kwala.
No, I've come.
I'm now on page 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Paragraph 5. Third from the bottom.
Page 3.
Yes. Paragraph 5, which is the third from the bottom.
2, 3, 4. Oh, 5 from the bottom.
Yeah, 3 from the bottom.
3 from the bottom. Yes.
Yeah. You are talking about, in fact, you repeat that assertion in many other places. Evidence has been laid before this commission by ANC members and witnesses whose relatives were ANC members and were killed. In many instances, they are also unhappy about the manner that the police are conducting the investigations. Some of them are citing ineffectiveness, political interference, and sheer dereliction of duty for political ends. The question is, in the light of that, I'm telling you specific evidence before this court. Of course, as an experienced politician, you also know what is...
You mean before the commission, not the court? Okay.
Sorry. Did I say court? Before the commission. Also, as an experienced politician, you know what is in the public domain. Would you concede that the unhappiness about the police is not unique to the IFP? In other words, as I've said, ANC family members and the community in general are unhappy about the manner that the police are investigating cases of political violence.
Not only political violence. There is weakness in the police.
In general?
In general. You can go outside here. You need not to, you can ask people outside. Then they will tell you that there is a problem.
We will go back to this point when at the end I ask you for the IFP's recommendations regarding these shortcomings, so to speak. So we will deal with this later. In other words, please prepare to give the IFP's recommendation as to what should be done regarding poor performance or inefficiency on the part of the police. Let's go to same sentence, or rather same paragraph. Crime escalates when there is a perceived lack of consequences. Are you saying, Mr. Kwala, the IFP believes that part of the underlying causes of this political violence is the impunity? In other words, if criminals are not brought to book and these political killings are not investigated, it escalates them in the sense that because there's no deterrent, then it goes on.
Yes. Just take, for example, I highlighted the fact that there is what is called when somebody is just appointed to head the police, just an ordinary man in the street can be picked up and lead the police force without any training. That is actually is one of the factors that actually cause the the failure of the police to do their work correctly. Any Dick, Tom, and Harry can lead the police force. And you can imagine when you take a Kirkley header to be a principal of a school and you expect that there will be any good results after that. And then secondly is the issue of the criminals. I've spoken to the issue in my presentation regarding the matter in Inanda, where one member of the party was shot in a broad daylight in the precinct of the court. There were police, there were media personnel, and the person was actually apprehended, he was taken, and there was a gun in his hand, but that case died a natural death, if there is such a thing. You ask yourself, what is the reason? Because what we were told, maybe my attorney will actually testify on this. What we were told is that it's because the SABC did not give them a videotape of what happened. So the question I'm asking as a man in the street, so it is worse for South Africa, because if a woman is raped in a sugarcane, there will be no tape recorder or a video that will actually take it. So then it means then women are going to be abused by men.
Are you saying there was ample other evidence on the basis of which the case should have proceeded, besides the alleged video footage from SABC?
We were told that the reason is that SABC is refusing. I think SABC didn't want to be part of the problem because they are working for their own thing.
Yes.
I agree with them, but police were there. It was inside the court precinct, and police were there, and a person was actually apprehended, and the gun was found. But the court failed to go on with the trial. You ask yourself, what is this?
Same paragraph, Mr. Kwala, I'll read. The IFP believes that many murders and attempted murders would never have taken place except for the belief on the part of the perpetrators that they are politically protected from punishment. Who does the IFP assert is protecting those criminals from punishment?
No, I can say that it is done by the government through the police. That is the answer that I can give you.
Okay.
Yeah. I can even go further.
Yes.
Taking about the issue, because I heard the police when I was in the community safety and liaison talking about somebody who has been given a life sentence of killing a certain Mr. Sipondovela.
Yeah, that's recent.
Yeah, it's a clear indication the lawlessness in this country, because Sipho Ndovela was taken by the police to court in order for him to give witnesses of the other killings in the hostel. So the police decided to leave him, and they went somewhere. I don't know where somewhere, but according to the information, the police went to Spain. After testifying in court, then Ndovela phoned the police to say, I'm now done. Then they said, okay, we are coming from Isipin. Go out of the court and wait for us outside. That is the information that we received. So he went outside the court. That's where he was shot and killed. So the question whether the person who killed Ndovela has been
convicted.
Convicted, yes. Whether that person who killed Ndovela has been convicted. The truth is that what happens with the police, the police who took him from there and deserted him in the court present.
I'm on page 4 now. So, very first paragraph. So the question must be asked why a commission of inquiry has only been established now and why its investigations have been limited to the period after 2011. In the previous page, you've set the background to that, but what I would like to know, what does the IFP believe is the reason for that? In other words, I'm asking you to please give your thoughts on that.
People are not aware, Chairperson, that I'm serving also in the multi-party intervention committee. And I'm also a member of the legislature serving on community safety and liaison. The initial proposal by the ANC was for the commission to investigate the killing within the ANC. So the opposition party said, no, it cannot happen. You can't use state resources to investigate yourself. Why don't you look for private investigators to investigate your own thing? Then they said, okay, it's fine. Let us incorporate all political killings. But we failed to push the ruling party beyond 2011. But they insisted that it must be 2011. To us, it's because they don't want to interfere with the other killings because it will expose them.
This is interesting to us as evidence leaders. I have reasons for saying so. Can you sort of give the year, just the year, what year was this when you say the ANC initially wanted the commission to investigate ANC killings only. What year was that proposed by the ANC?
It was last year.
Last year?
Yes.
Thank you. Chairperson, may we take a short break at the stage for 15 minutes?
Yes, we'll adjourn for 15 minutes.
Thank you.
That's the Moirani Commission in KZN, of course, looking at all the killings in KZN, and we'll bring you an update. They are taking a break right now, but we are also taking a break. We'll be right back after that.
Do you have a funeral policy?
No matter the sacrifices you've made or the hours you've worked, you can't always say yes. AvBob's Cashback Funeral Plan not only provides funeral insurance for your family, but also helps you to say yes to life's little extras more often. Because for every 5 claim-free years, you'll get your 5th year's premiums based on your monthly premium value paid back in cash. SMS cash to 41790 and we'll call you. AvBob, we're here for you.
SMS cash to 41790 and AvBob will contact you.
What guides us? What leads us forward? Is it the words of our sacred texts? Is it the actions of our people? Or the voices of our citizens? Your country is guided by the voices of its people, and your broadcaster is dependent on your voice to guide it. Get your copy of the SABC's editorial policy and have your say.
Breaking news now. Judge Dalen Chetty of the Port Elizabeth High Court has struck an urgent application by the ex-Nelson Mandela Bay Metro Deputy Mayor, Bongameli Bobani, off the roll. Well, that's breaking news for you. You'll find some of those details in our later bulletins. Stay tuned on Channel 404. Right now, it's time to take a look at your sports news with Kendo Makamate.
Thank you very much, Elvis. Very interesting sporting day we're having. Just to add on to all the spicy news that you've been bringing us, we talk a little bit about a high fly-off. Henry Pollard is one of the 7 players released by Springbok coach Alistair Coetzee to play Currie Cup rugby next weekend. Pollard, who came on as a replacement in Saturday's record defeat against the All Blacks in Albany, made his first debut in 2015 at the Rugby World Cup. He is one player in serious need of some game time. The others released along with Pollard are Damien Diayende, the centre, and then utility back Dylan Lay, scrum half Rudy Page, prop Wilke Low, hooker Chilibwe Ralepele, and loose forward Dan du Preez. The squad is expected to reassemble in Bloemfontein for the test match against the Wallabies on the following weekend. And of course, the names being bandied around are those of the likes of Francois Lowe, possibly even Dwayne Vermeulen. Now, yesterday marked exactly 2 years before Japan hosted the Rugby World Cup in 2019. The celebrations come at a time when tournament director Alan Gilpin raised concerns that the organizers of the 2019 Rugby World Cup in Japan have not made sufficient progress in key areas and must pick up the pace of preparations.
Hundreds of people participated in an event marking 2 years until Japan hosts the Rugby World Cup. The event included the performance of New Zealand's traditional haka and the revealing of the Webb Ellis Trophy. Visitors at the event also learned about basic rugby moves with players.
Let's
raise the excitement for the sport as Tokyo residents and Japanese citizens and welcome all different types of people from the world.
Host nation Japan are in Pool A alongside Ireland and Scotland and are likely to feature strongly. The group also includes the top European qualifier, possibly Romania, and a playoff winner completing the group.
The quality of the cup is obviously visible. It's very beautiful. It's made of gold. It's the intangible reward that we're after. It's the pride that we want to play rugby with, and obviously being in our country in Japan, we're really excited about that.
Scotland beat Japan in the 2015 pool stage. England will need to emerge from arguably the toughest 2019 World Cup pool when they bid for global glory in Japan. Eddie Jones's men are grouped alongside France and Argentina. Sfeso Ramara, SABC News.
Now onto a sport we seldom cover, where we look at South African surfer Jordan Smith, who's got his best opportunity yet to become the country's first male world champion in 40 years. Smith leads the World Surf League's men's championship tour with 3 events remaining on this season's calendar.
Smith extended his lead at the top of the rankings after this weekend's competition at Trestles Beach, California. He reached the final where he competed against Brazil's Felipe Toledo. Toledo won the recent Corona Open in Jeffreys Bay and recorded his second win of the season by beating the South African at Lower Trestles San Clemente. Smith's performance, however, was good enough to increase the gap between him and his closest rivals. After 8 events, he has 45,850 points and is just over 2,000 points ahead of defending champion Hawaii's John Florence. The winner of each event gets 10,000 points and the runner-up 8,000. The next event is in France from the 7th to the 18th of October. The tour will be in Portugal at the end of October, while the last event is in Hawaii in December. Smith says he doesn't want to get too far ahead of himself, but admits that it's better to lead the championship than to try and catch up. Sean Thompson was the last South African male surfer to win a world title in 1977. Harry Wollifier, SABC News.
Right, now on to local football. Absolute Premiership action, to be exact, where Orlando Pirates' unbeaten start to the new season will be tested tonight by Benny McCarthy and Cape Town City FC. Pirates, joint log leaders with 3 others, have 8 points after 2 wins and 2 draws. Now the City coach, Benny McCarthy, who's a former Pirate striker himself, has guided the team to a cup final already, dismissing the defending MTN8 champions in the process in his first season as coach. That match kicks off at 7:30 p.m. tonight at the FNB Stadium. Old Peter Mokaba hosts home team Polokwane City and Free State Stars, while SuperSport United, who drew on Friday to Zambian giants Zesco in the CAF Confederations Cup, host Chipa United. And going through to what's happening on Wednesday night, as you can see, Maritzburg United up against Kaizer Chiefs, and then Bloem Celtic against Baroka FC. Amazulu up against Bidvest, and of course Gavin Hunt will be trying to get one back and get in contention for the title race, because he has slipped a little bit off late. And then we've got, of course, Platinum Stars against Golden Arrows, who are the current joint log leaders right to the top. As I said the other day, it's been a long time since we had 2 KwaZulu-Natals topping the log. That's Golden Arrows and Maritzburg United. Golden Arrows will be visiting Royal Bafokeng to play Platinum Stars, and rumors have had it, of course, that Platinum Stars is up for sale, and management has vociferously and strenuously denied those allegations. But you know what they say: with the smoke, there's fire. Now, we have been trying to get you to engage with us on some sporting events, and the big question for us today is, after hearing that the Springboks will be letting go some players to go keep match fit by playing the Currie Cup, the rumours have been doing the rounds that yes, we're going to be bringing in players from Europe to shore up the box and bolster their defense and their attack and just get them ship-shape again for that match against the Wallabies. And we asked you that question. What do you make of that? Should they get more European reinforcements? And Cindy Patience comes in and says it's not a hopeless situation. Yes, they can still improve certain things. It's the best team in South Africa. There's a die-hard fan for you right there, Cindy, and practicing her name, being patient with the Springboks. Malibong Manyonya says, select players according to their performance, not by colour or where does the player play. Of course, the most contentious thing in South African sports right now is about race, and Malibong weighing in there with an opinion on the matter. And last but not least, Tabiso Ngwe says they won't help much to break the psychologically colossal force that the All Blacks have become. Well, you know, it's done and dusted. We've played that first match. Let's hope to see if they make a difference in their very last match. And that's all the sports we've got for you for today. Stay close.
Calm has returned to Cape Town following Monday's violent taxi strike. In Inyanga on the Cape Flats, people have started boarding minibus taxis in their respective destinations. The Golden Arrow bus service is also operating normally. Now, on Monday, taxi ranks were deserted as the strike turned violent, with several vehicles, including buses, being set alight and property vandalized. Taxi operators are unhappy over the impounding of their vehicles by authorities. Now, for an update on the story, we joined from our parliamentary studios by the Western Cape Department of Transport and Public Works MEC, Donald Grant. A very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
Good morning to you, Elvis, and you and your viewers.
Can you confirm that the strike is over now?
Yes, I'm happy to say so. We reached a way forward yesterday where a mediation process will commence. Overnight, we gave a list of 4 retired judges to Santako and the other grouping to consider. And what we committed to yesterday was to go through a process of about 2 weeks of mediation, which will lead to democratic, free and fair elections in Santako, Western Cape by the middle of November 2017.
At the heart of the strike was the impounding of vehicles. Will these vehicles be returned to the taxi drivers, or what was at the heart of this strike?
No, sir, that was not the reason for the strike. The primary reason for the strike was the electoral process regarding leadership. The other issue, the factor that involves and why we need to go to mediation is the interpretation of an internal document of Santako, which was concluded in March 2017. And there was disagreement amongst different people within Santako as how to interpret that document and whether people were mandated to sign that document or not. The impoundment issue was another issue that was raised in discussions, but the impoundment relates to the city of Cape Town and the taxis that have been impounded in the Ndebeni area. It's a completely separate issue. It has got nothing to do with the mediation process, which is really around the electoral process for new leadership in Santako.
So what you are suggesting, MEC, then, is that the violence that we've seen in Cape Town had nothing to do with what you are currently discussing with the leadership?
It was a threefold factor. The one was the elections themselves in the process. The second was the legal agreements in the interpretation of basically who's running Santako in the Western Cape. And then the third issue, as an afterthought, was the impoundments. We've decided to park that and deal with that as a separate process outside of mediation.
So what will happen now? Can we expect more violence then, or are you certain that this mediation process will rule that out?
I'm never certain about anything apart from death and taxes, but I'm hopeful that this mediation process will lead to the election of strong, free, fair process where we have leadership with whom we can work at a provincial level, at a regional level, and even at a local government level in different parts of the Western Cape.
What was the extent of the damage that was caused during this particular strike, MEC?
I would guesstimate it would be more than 10 million rand. But the real damage, apart from the damage to transport, public transport infrastructure and vehicles, obviously we lost two buses, which are difficult to replace. And then there were a number of private vehicles which were stoned. And obviously, people who've got claims, I met with Minister Plato this morning. There's a flood of claims that have come in, which we are now directing to Santaco to get advice on where those people now present their claims for settlement.
Commuters in Cape Town using taxis, could they now sleep a little bit easier?
I certainly hope that everyone learns from this process, because violence is not the way to solve problems. Violence begets violence, and it gets us nowhere. And obviously, I'm hopeful that with new leadership and a fair democratic process, the minibus taxi industry can work with us in finding solutions to integrated public transport options for commuters in the future in the Western Cape.
MEC, thank you so much for your time and good luck.
Thank you very much.
That was the Western Cape Department of Transport and Public Works MEC, Mr. Donald Grant, coming to us from our parliamentary studios.
Over 5% of the world's population, or 360 million people, has disabling hearing loss.
Sometimes babies are born that can't hear. Yeah. And especially during the pregnancy, where there's some infections that mom could pick up that can actually transmit that damage to the ear, and those children can be born deaf.
I don't look at myself as a disabled person. I looked at myself as Bruno, not with a disability. I don't have barriers. I use South African Sign Language because I have a language.
And unfortunately, we need to talk to the teenagers and the young people out there. I know it's now fine to go to the concerts and listen to that loud music, but you're actually damaging those little hair cells all the time. And you're not going to pay the price now. You're going to pay the price when you turn 45, 50. And then all of a sudden, we're going to see the damage done.
For all your health news, join Health Talk every Saturday from 9 to 10.